Yeah. All right, everybody ready? Okay. Good evening and welcome to the May 21st meeting of the Wasatch Groves Town Council. If we can have the roll call, please.
Mayor Browning.
Here.
Vice Mayor Darrell.
Here.
Councilman Dusty.
Here.
Councilman Leeang.
Here.
Councilman Ackett.
Yeah.
Okay, we can stand for the pledge or remain standing for the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Heavenly Father, again, we ask for wisdom. We ask safety for those that are serving our country overseas. Our hearts go out to those that have suffered so greatly in Oklahoma. The tragedy there is just beyond comprehension. We pray for those people out there that are rescuing and finding people, and we just pray that more will be found. We pray for these things in your name. Amen. All right, any additions to the agenda? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Do you have a motion or a second?
Second.
Okay, further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Do we need a roll call vote on this? Mark? Okay. Yeah, any opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving to the consent agenda. Any changes? Entertain a motion.
Make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Is there a second? Second by Ryan. Further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving to public comments. Do we have cards? Who wants to make a public comment to start? Is yours? It's a new agenda item, Bill. You haven't been here in a while.
Public comment, you don't have it at the end?
Yes, we do.
Oh, okay.
At the beginning, at the end, and at the items. So, all right. If not, then we will move to, we have no presentations, we have no committee reports, we have no public hearings, no ordinances, no resolutions, administrative update. We could probably get a motion.
Okay, we'll try to make this quick. Now, at our last meeting, there was some discussion about going ahead and trying to schedule a vegetative pickup right before the storm season starts. We have gone to our records, we've looked, it appears that the agreement between the town of Wasatch Groves and CC Loader, the service vendor that we have for vegetative waste removal, does not have a termination date. I haven't had a chance to show it to the town attorney, but it does appear that we can go ahead and, if council so desires, schedule a date probably for late May or early June. But, we're figuring we would need some lead time to go ahead and do a postcard and let folks know that we're going to be having this event occurring whatever days are determined. So with that, I want to make council aware that that's something we can do. You can even do it in May or June if you want. Storm season obviously starts June 1st. So.
Okay. Do you want us to talk about it now, or are you just giving this in your report?
Well, it's, again, I'm not trying to create action items in the town report, but you did ask me to look into it. We did look into it. If you want, I'll be happy to schedule it for the first meeting in June, so if you wanted to take affirmative action at that point.
Everybody all right with that?
The farther we get, or closer we get to hurricane season, I believe we were talking about sending out a notice to let the people know, and we were wanting to give them 2 to 3 weeks notice, which
That's right.
3 weeks would be the minimum, I would think. So do we need a vote to have that process started? Because I would like to go ahead and send out the notice as soon as possible.
So with your call.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to send out a notice tomorrow, if not sooner.
All right.
You can use a general mailing without a specific name. We can just go out to everybody in zip code.
We'll probably try to do it by postcards probably.
Postcard. All right, and we will pick a date. what are we gonna do? We're gonna give them 3 or 4 weeks, so, or 3 weeks?
You almost gotta pick the date now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, because that way I can go check with CC Lover and make sure that that is a date that works for them as well.
Okay.
Do the, assignments and-
So what do you think, maybe the 2nd or the 3rd Saturday in June? I mean, typically June starts.
I can coordinate that with Johnny
Okay.
sometime in the next 30 days and.
And we could say the second and third Saturday.
Second or
pick
third
one of
Saturday
those.
in June.
You give me direction, know where you want to go. What I can do is I'll talk to Johnny, I'll try to determine a date, and I'll report back to you. If, you know, if we can collectively come to a date, then I will start the postcard process, but I can at least give you an update in our first meeting in June. That's where we're
Well, I don't think we have a second on the motion. I made a motion, but we'll talk about it anyway. Did we second it?
Yeah, I second.
Okay, sorry. Then let's give you all the direction you need right now, so you can work it out with Johnny, set a date. The only guidance would be that I think we suggested it was maybe second or third Saturday in June. And the mailing, do all those things without coming back to us again.
Is there a budget we're gonna spend on this? I haven't heard any discussion on
That I'm gonna have to find a That's not my earmark at this point in time, so I'm not, we're gonna have to look and see.
I don't know what we did last time. Let's just say the budget would be the same as it did last time? As a starter, unless it has to be done. I'm just trying to
I
get it.
don't recall, I'm just saying, from procurement point of view, we need to make sure we tell him everything he needs to know budget-wise and stuff like that.
And keep in mind now, the difference this year than last year is I believe he got the bid for vegetation removal. We'll talk about tonight, so that should affect the cost. I would hope we might even get a better deal. But
Well, if you want for guidance, even though we don't have the information, you say not to exceed the amount spent last year, that should be enough to go, and if in reviewing of it, it needs additional funds than what was spent last year, that request could be made on June 4th.
Was it last year or the year before? Did we do
It
it?
was the year, I think it was last year.
Year before.
The last time we provided
The last time we provided it.
Then my motion accordingly, no more than we spent last time we provided this service.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion?
the only thing is when you send the card out, now the residents have to know what date it has to be out by.
So, and what it'll be is there'll be a little bit of coordination with our regular garbage pickup, to where we're gonna allow people to accumulate larger piles that will be picked up on that date. So we really don't want people getting the tags on their piles kind of in between. But, anyway, okay, Marge?
Marge Herzog, A Road. With the mailer, instead of using the residents' names, Don Williams sends out cards using the zones, the mailing zones in the town. So if the office could check with Don and find out exactly how he does it, it would save time and money. It's a lot cheaper to do it that way.
Okay.
Did I say that? Did I say that? No, that's
Something very similar.
Yeah. You have somebody that you currently work with, she can provide you the same information.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Roll call.
Roll call.
Your roll call, Phil. Otherwise stated. Roll call.
All right. Councilman Rackett,
Okay, yes.
Vice Mayor Jira,
Yes.
Councilman Goldstein,
Yes.
Councilman Liang,
Yes.
and Mayor Brown.
Yes. I need a big sign on the back, roll call. Okay. All right, Mark.
Second item, at last month's IGC meeting, the IGC had the opportunity to hear from Mike Odell from Wellington, and John Bondi also accompanied him. And we had a very long presentation relative to Wellington and their manure program. I just want to let council know, we are going to be discussing it again at this Friday's IGC for the purposes, at one point it was sort of formalized recommendations, but it was thought that quite possibly in the future, maybe town council and the board of district supervisors for the water control district might want to get together and talk about the manure issue. So I just want to let you know, we've had the presentations, but they were long, that we didn't get a chance to actually have a meaningful debate and discussion amongst the IGC committee members. So we're going to do that this Friday, and I'll be back to you probably in June with a recommendation based upon the IGC as to whether we would try to schedule a workshop with the district or not.
Okay.
The other item that I'll be talking about relates to the IGC on Friday. That's actually in the old business, so I'll reserve that and tell you about that later when we get to that item. I also just wanted to give you a report. We did contact the county, Ross Herring, relative to the 3 parcels in question. We have a letter ready, but your motion at the last meeting asked for us to bring it back. There are some costs, there are some back taxes that are due. They're in the $2,000 to $3,000 range. But we're prepared if you want us to move forward. We'll send the letter out to Mr. Herring and the department and get that process rolling if that's still your intention.
All right, you need action right now on that?
Well, I don't recall what the direction was in the last meeting, so.
I think it was just to call them
Bring it back.
and bring it back.
Yes.
Right, Mr. Mayor, but we need action tonight because we lost one lot that was buildable, and it went for estimated bid of $16,000, and I don't remember what the taxes was on that lot, but it wasn't nothing compared to what it went for. So the longer we hesitate, we may lose it. I'd rather go ahead. Whatever we do with these properties, we can make it a benefit to the residents. 147th Street North, there's 6 parcels that's involved in that. If the developer gets a hold of that, then he could charge those people for that easement or whatever. So we need to go ahead and get it taken care of tonight.
Okay, Tom?
If I could ask Mark, he's talking about 6 parcels on 147?
Not really, let's see, it's,
6 residents.
the parcels are located on Raymond, 24th Court North, and 147th North.
Are they actually road segments?
There's one PIN number for each of those 3 parcels, addresses I just read.
Are they road segments or what type of property?
Yeah, I don't like road segments, easements.
I don't think we should get that.
All right.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
back in the last one of the meetings we had directed town management before Mark was here. December 7th, we had directed that we move forward on those parcels. The only, let me read from the minutes. Vice Mayor Lipp made a motion to accept the additional properties pending the outcome of our request to the Water Control District to forgive the debt on the original parcel. And the second, then we voted 5-0 at that time. So, I mean, we've already directed, at least management, to move forward on that, and for whatever reason, it wasn't concluded. We can certainly direct them again, but we did do that once in 2010, and it was the parcels I think that we're still talking about, which was at that time, 22nd Road North was listed, we had already accepted that. 147th Avenue North, 24th Court North, 131st Street, 2 parcels, and Raymond Drive, 2 parcels. That's what we listed in those minutes. And we had already directed that to be done, so it wasn't done, but what do we do? We have to do it again?
I would suggest you reconfirm, especially if you want to go with that list there. I don't know if that's consistent with the list that Mark has. But if you want to reconfirm that direction, I mean, even though you're all there, I mean, it's a different council every time you have an election anyway, so you can confirm it, there's no ambiguity about your direction, rather than refer back to December of 2011.
All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we accept those properties from the county and pay whatever cost it happens to be.
And we're going to combine the 2 lists to make sure we don't lose them.
Right.
Okay.
Whatever.
I'll second the motion. Can you have a list of them? Can you rattle them off quickly?
Yeah. So I only have 3 properties. I have Raymond Drive, parcel Raymond Drive, 24th Court North parcel located in Waxahachie Groves, and 147th Avenue North located in Waxahachie Groves.
Okay. Well, there's 2 others on this list, and I'll provide it to you if we can include that in the motion, at least to consider that.
We'll verify. I would think this is the most updated information, so hopefully those parcels are still available, but I'll have to confirm that.
Right, just emerging if it's applicable, I'll provide you this, so I can give you.
Okay.
I think that's what Dave was saying.
Right.
Make sure you merge the 2 if they're both applicable.
One of those was 22nd Court North, right?
Right.
And at some point, Frank,
22nd was 22nd was noted as already accepted on this list, so I took it off as a new item.
Okay, all right, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion by council? I have nothing by the public. Thank you. Roll call.
Vice Mayor Tiro,
Yes.
Councilman Rappick,
Yes.
Councilman Liang,
Yes.
Councilman Bolsonaro,
Yes.
and Mayor Vernon.
Yes. Okay, that concludes yours. All right.
One, if I may, Mr. Mayor, one of the items in your updates, Mark, and the many that you give us, was that you had, this past week, we had a ULDC committee meeting.
Yes.
Something that was in that meeting concerned me a bit. I wanted to ask about it and ask the council. There was a discussion, I guess, on a noise land use code, and it's been a discussion for a couple of times. I don't recall, and I thought with that the direction of the council, we tried to get the committee to address things that we needed done first, second, whatever it might be, and that was not something I remember as a council. We suggested that land use code take a look at, land use code committee, and I would like to reiterate that I think we're trying to give them some direction, at least according to our ordinance, that the resolution that we said we would identify the areas we want them to
We
address.
talked about, we talked about that several times in terms of how items would go to them, what direction they would get, and what would necessitate the issues they would look at. And yes, council, determined that you wanted to be the ones to tell staff what items to take. But also in that discussion, I believe the leeway was also given to me to also bring items that needed to be addressed. And this was one of those items that we have known was an issue for future code enforcement matters. And basically, we didn't, ULDC did not discuss any particular solutions. The direction that I asked for and the direction they gave me was just that our current regulations need to be reviewed. The gentleman who provided, from Quest, who provided the noise training on the meters for our staff and Royal Palm Beach, who also participated, has basically provided me with a number of ordinances and links as to who has good ordinances. And that's basically as far as it's gone. The ODC has just indicated that yeah, we need to take a look at when all the amendments are considered and maybe need to look at amending that. And probably, I would say maybe hopefully next month, I would like to probably give you almost like a mid-year report of where they're at in terms of, because I've kind of told them in the meetings they can get bogged down on specific issues, and we've had a couple items where we just kind of got bogged down. And I've indicated it's not incumbent upon the committee to necessarily come up with a solution. Basically, what I think town council is looking for is for them to look at the regulation and make a determination, yeah, we need to amend it or do something to it or remove it, but not necessarily wordsmith it and come up with the language where we'll be there for 3 or 4 years trying to do that. So that's kind of the direction where we can go.
Well, what I would prefer is, I guess, if we have something that the council's given as direction to handle, which I thought was quite a full plate when we talked about the areas of special exceptions and all that, come up with that, let's focus on that, conclude that, and bring it back to us. If, I would think if there's something that you want the ULDC's committee to address, or if the committee itself has a motion approved that they would like to address, that would come back to the council, and that way we can continue to have what we've said, which is a direction from the town council for everything that we want them to handle. And we can certainly consider things that somebody else wants to do, but I didn't see the direction come from the council that said, we want you to look at this particular thing. In addition, there's some question as far as a ruling by our magistrate subject to that particular part of our land use code. I don't think that's something we want to have a lot of discussion about what might be better or different until that gets settled.
Well, I agree, and we didn't. It was a very brief discussion. Everything that's been given to them so far at this point in time are items that have been identified by you all, with the exception of definitions, because that became a big issue that the ULDC committee also wanted to talk about because of its impact as it relates to the entire ULDC. And I'm trying to get this done within the parameters of a year. The only thing I would say, Councilman, is if you want, I'm concerned about this raising issues and then bringing it back. And, I mean, that's a lot of back and forth and bouncing around. It's going to really slow us down. if we have to go that track.
I think it's an option. The direction was clear in our resolution. We gave the committee some specific things we wanted to look at that we felt were the most important things to be done and conclude those, bring them back. We take that on, because we wait 12 months to get a complete report on a variety of items. I think we're spending a lot more time without getting something done. So I would prefer that we follow what I thought was our requirement. And I didn't know, I have some difficulty finding the committee even on our website. I have more difficulty finding the actual minutes. But the committee I can't find on the website at all, as even existed. So if I'm looking to see what they're doing, it's kind of difficult. But to find out that there's something going on that the council was directing and it's not something I remember is kind of indirect. I'd rather not have it that way. What my comment was based on was, we have one direction of what we wrote into our resolution. I would think the council could entertain somebody coming back to us from the other direction, but otherwise it's one way. That's why I think we ought to run with it. And council certainly chime in, because I was surprised to see that we had not resolved one thing, but we're off on others.
Just so you know, in the scope of things, that took like 10 minutes for one meeting, so.
Okay, Tom?
If I could, I certainly think that Mark should have the latitude to, as I've said many times before, we hold him responsible to produce product, to get results. If all we're going to do is try to micromanage, gatekeep, and decide everything he's going to do, then I feel that that's inappropriate, because I think it's up to him to do what it is he feels is appropriate. Now, certainly, we didn't, and I don't think that anybody wholesalely rewrote the ULDCs and has approved them, because I wasn't here when it happened, and that's up to us to do. So I'm not concerned that people say things. I mean, people have proposed roads, they've proposed all sorts of ideas, but those ideas do not necessarily carry through, as we know. So just because someone says something doesn't make it so. And I'm not afraid of ideas. So if they want to talk at it, that's the better place to me to talk at it, where the people can focus on it. And then they can come to us with consensus of what they're thinking, if there is a consensus. If there isn't a consensus, then it comes to us. And even if they did have a consensus, there's nothing that says we have to go with it. We can do something different. So I don't really have a problem with people discussing it through. I certainly don't have a problem with Mark being responsible for his actions and being responsible for the results thereof. So I err more on the side of I'm looking for him to do a good job, and I'll tell him if he's not, versus the items in specific that I want him to do. And that's a philosophical difference that I might have with other councilmen, but I'm looking to him to get it done.
Yeah. Okay, any other council members?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Jim?
if you have something to say, you say it first and I'll speak second.
Okay, yeah, I can. My thought is, and I agree with Jim in that I think we need to bite it off a bite at a time. So as they come up with an idea for a change, I think it would be good to bring it forward. Unless you're saying we want to deal with the whole thing at one time and have a special meeting on it. What's your thought?
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is I plan to give you in June a mid-year report on everything they've deliberated on so far.
Okay.
However, we have always intended that right out of the gate, and they just deliberated on this last Thursday, so that's the reason why it's going to be coming before you now. The special exceptions, which was a major problem, is going to be taken separately. That's going to be like the first amendment we try to do, because there are a number of issues writing on that. A number of folks have had correspondence about that. And then on the rest of the items, like for example, with the definitions between the staff and the ULDC, we found a lot of problems with definitions. And there's probably a recommendation to rewrite, I'm going to say conservatively, maybe 35 to 40%
Okay.
of all definitions. Now, is that something that, we want to get rolling on right away? I mean, we'll have to look at how the ebb and flow of the work is going, but, I mean, no, the intention wasn't to slow down and try to do it all at one time. We're going to try to do it in, neat components.
And I think our intention was that to try to take care of the hot items first,
Right.
the things that were affecting most people.
Right. My concern in part, Mr. Mayor, is that
Just a question.
Mark is pretty specific about needing direction. He says, give me the direction, I'll do what you ask me to do. If we say direction by town council, and town council's not involved in what they handle it, then I'm not sure when it is we have to give direction and we don't. So I mean, it was pretty specific, and I don't remember us giving the direction, and my concern is that we get into too many other things and we slow it down. And if we get one thing that we can focus on, get it wrapped up, we can come back and move on to other things. I think that's what the intent was, at least my thinking. And I thought that what you also might say.
Okay.
Tom?
Mark, regarding the definitions, staff is going to redo the definitions and ask us to approve them, is that the case? Or are you asking us to redefine?
Oh, no, we can do it. I mean, it's just a question of how you want the definitions done. I mean, don't forget, the assignment that you give to the management company right now is basically limited to the review, not necessarily to a rewrite of the review. So obviously, we'll do that if you want. We'll need to figure out how, and that's why we need to have a discussion. But it has been my intention under this to have Mr. Fleischman move forward on special sections, because that was a burning issue that caused a lot of problems across the board in a number of areas, including Mr. Harris's issue with commercial equestrian facilities, as you know, which he addressed to the committee. And I'm saying, if you don't want me to identify things that you see as a problem, I'll be happy to step out. But we are doing this in a consulting manner and under a work authorization. So if you want me to back out, it'll simply be the stuff that you want. But that is a defined problem. We need to address it. We're not, it's not something that has to be addressed right now, and the committee agreed.
Okay. Tom?
I would just like to say that that's an example of what I was saying, and Mark needs the flexibility to do that, and if he's always has to come back to us all the time, it's just, talk about slowing up the process, that's what that's going to do.
And I guess I want to be careful that we don't have to do the whole process over. So in other words, I think I'm looking for a little more from the ULDC committee as far as the suggestion. Here's what we have, here's what we suggest to streamline the thing. And, rather than just come back to us and say, we have a problem with this, and then all of a sudden we find ourselves having to hash through every part of the ULDC, and then our time up here is
And this to me is no place to sit and define terms and argue over is or not and things like that. It needs to be done so that we can focus on it. If there's a problem or anything specific, but we cannot spend the time to go over it.
And Council, to date, you have been very good with that. I mean, there have been some issues, I think, when there was some concern relative to the amendment related to the hay sales that we were working on. You had directed us and asked us to go back to the LDC, but we did that. So I think we are working generally from the scope of the way we wanted to work with this.
All right, any other questions?
One point was that I wasn't aware that that was something we gave you to do, and I thought we were telling. In this particular case, of this committee, we have a time limit, and we have a lot of items we want to address. If there was something that we specifically want to handle, I would expect that to be done, and not anything else. And so we got through that. Now, if there's peripheral things that come up and say you can't really get one done without bringing a couple other things in, that'd be fine, but I would expect the council to be kept up to date. Because I can't, like I said, it's difficult for me to follow things.
I'll look at that and find out why you're having
But it's not micromanaging. In this particular case, it was specific as to what the committee was doing. And that was something I was looking for some feedback as to where are we and what are we doing on that particular item.
Okay, Tom McClendon.
Tom Clinton, D Road. As you guys may be aware, there was actually a letter sent to the town from your own noise expert that said there's a problem with the code. All right, that makes it very clear. It can be used as evidence from future cases. If there's a problem with the noise, that evidence can be used against the town. Hey, you guys know you have a code that has problems and you've done nothing to correct it. So that's probably why he brought it up and said we need to discuss this, knowing it's going to be an issue going forward. Jim wouldn't have had a problem with this had it been anything other than noise. Had it been the height of fences, had it been tree shrubs, had it been anything else besides noise, he wouldn't have an issue with him moving forward with it with the LDC committee. It's all about political thing right now. It shouldn't be held for you guys to pin him down as to what topics. He runs his town every day. He knows what topics are hot. He knows which ones to be on. It gets very political when the four of you are telling him every day how to do things. It starts to get very political, and it shouldn't be that way. Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Mayor, I take exception. We do not know we have a problem with our ULDCs when it comes to noise. We don't know we have a problem. That statement is false.
Okay. All right, moving to 10A, pond siting.
Mayor, can you hear me? Do I need the mic? Take the mic.
I can hear you fine, but the people out there can or not. That's your question.
What I wanted to do is give, I'll take the mic. I wanted to give the council a brief update on what has happened with the pond siting issue at the estate level. Get out of that light. And the final pond siting meeting was held on May 8th. And what's been put up on the screen first is what they did was a very elaborate matrix in terms of how, by the way, I would say that at the 8th meeting, in addition to myself, Vice Mayor Gerald attended, as well as Steve Yohe from the Water Control District. And basically our role was limited to just input with certain parcels. I mean, we didn't really have any decision-making capability. This is all being done by FDOT and their folks. But what they did is they came up with a very elaborate matrix that you can see it here. There was zoning, right-of-way, land use, right-of-way costs. They came up with a factor, and then they weighted each property, drainage considerations, flood zone. They got into utilities. They got into issues that related to endangered species, if there were environmental problems. So they went ahead and they and all their experts at FDOT and the consultants ranked all the parcels. Now next, what I want to do is go to the aerials. You can bring that up. As you know, there were 5 basins that FDOT was working on as it relates to ponds. The first basin was from, it's not up here, this is ours. The first basin actually started out at west of Lion Country Safari Road and went to Seminole Pratt. The second went from Seminole Pratt roughly to almost A Road. This is, maybe the third one? Okay, this is A Road. And as you can see, this is, they had each, I think this one had five parcels. No, it actually had more than 10 parcels. But you'll see this is B Road here and A Road here, and you can see these 2 parcels in here are on the college property, and the third is on the property by Bob Benson and Joe Lalonde. Actually, this one is, the first one is this one. This is their best parcel here. This is the second best, and this is the third best. And what, as they've explained it to us, is that in each basin they need 1 parcel. So basically with their process, if they're legal folks and everything, they're going to go and they're going to focus in on this parcel and try to get this first. I think Mr. Lalonde and Mr. Vince are going to talk to them about, because they have a water feature up in this area in their proposal. So I think that's going to be some discussion. But there were 10 parcels that they considered, as you can see, in this particular area, and those were the top 3, and they're going to go through that process further on as far as the parcels. The next, please go to the next slide. This goes from D Road to F Road, and on this one, the parcel that turned out to have the best rank is, the letters are, you can't really see it, 7AB. This is the best one. I believe this is the one owned by Drysdale Wheels. And they have made their position known. They're not happy because I think FDOT's looking for like 3 acres out of the 6 acres. And then this is the second best property right here. And again, there were a total of 5 on this one, just five properties. But that's again where FDOT came in. And the final is goes from F Road to Folsom. And there were a number of parcels there. In fact, I'll tell you this parcel right here, which is designated 8AJU1, was a property that they were looking at for joint use with the town. And what they had talked about was they needed the property for their pond, and we would work out a joint use for them. They were talking about actually giving us this piece right in here. They would deed all the property over to the town, and the town, if it so desired, could have used it as a potential town hall site, since you have the chamber right here and you have the Groves Medical here. The problem was that at one point it was their number 2 site. There was apparently an environmental issue that came to the table late, so that actually dropped down to 4. So right now, as it relates to this one, in terms of the final rank, 8A3 right here is the best parcel that they're going to be looking at. And then the second best parcel looks like it's going to be this one. They're calling it 8A2.
Oh, it's the
Right here.
other side of
So that's where they're at, and they're starting their process. And unfortunately, what had happened is the town had made it very clear. I think the vice mayor was very eloquent in telling them that, please be cognizant of the fact that this is our commercial corridor, And if we could, let's try to move these ponds to the rear of the properties or by Clifton Canal. We were even trying to move them back if we could to meet the 300-foot buffer on the linear strip that we have in our plan. I know in the second meeting when we were down there, the PFDOT's maintenance folks were really concerned about costs with piping and things like that. So it appears based upon the matrix, unfortunately, it just seems like most of the parcels that were selected are closer and are to the frontage on the southern. So that's what the process has ended, and we'll be waiting to see what they have to say. They're going to be getting in contact with all the property owners, and we'll be moving forward from here. Be happy to take any questions if you have.
Okay, question? Anybody? No.
I only want to say that not only did Ron tell them, me, Frank Spence, myself, all told them well before this ever started 2 years ago when we had meetings with them about it, that we prefer to have the public back rather than up front, the whole issue of commercial and using the buffer. So apparently the aspect of community involvement is very low in Matrix. That's why.
It sounds like. I've got, Rob, you got something?
Go ahead.
No, what do you envision as joint usage between the town and Florida Department of Transportation?
Well, what they were, we had asked them to provide us information, and I never got a copy of their agreements and all the particulars that make up the agreement. Basically, what they were telling us, and I think Councilman Goldston may have been in one of those meetings, is that what they would do is they would basically give the entire property that's going to be the pond to the town, and they just wanted the appropriate easements or whatever they needed to make sure they could maintain the pond. And we could use the property, for whatever we wanted, as long as it didn't threaten the integrity of the pond, and we could use it. However, I will tell you this, that none of the properties that were joint use now, they've kind of all fallen back and as based upon matrix. So the opportunities may not even be there to be considered.
Okay. All right, and I know that Nancy has concerns with her property being in that, and I find it very ironic that sometimes their choice is they choose the ones that are the nicest, and they don't really, like Tom says, they don't really listen or care for what anybody else does along there, which is a shame. Ron?
I believe it was the second to the last meeting that I attended, and then I made the last one, but the third to the last. But that meeting, they sound like they were going to make it worthwhile to us, and but they had one more final get together and vote and come up with points. And when they came back to the last meeting, basically they didn't do anything that helped this town or the people of Loxahatchee Groves. When I explained to them, they're wanting to take property that we're going to allow to be commercial and turn it into a retainment center. That hurts the town. It hurts the developers as far as commercial. It doesn't do us any good at all. It cuts our revenue down. And that property, because it is zoned commercial, costs them 3 and 4 times more than what the property on the backside of the acreage would be. And we tried to explain to them when they talked about this joint unit and stuff like that. I'm very disappointed in that DOP, but I'm not surprised. Okay, they led us to believe that they were going to work with this town. They didn't work with this town. Then Mrs. Drysdale's property, when I found out that they were going to take 3 acres of possibly 6 along Southern Boulevard, I gave them a second recommendation that we do the corner of Gordon's Nursery, which was another pond siting, which is close to D Road Canal, which would help us give better drainage to the people along Tangerine. We just drainage into the canal, stuff like that. And for some reason, they said their point score was like 200 higher than to put it up on Southern Boulevard. So I personally don't really care about their points. I think they put the town of Loxahatchee Groves, and I believe they're going to do the same thing about the red light at D Road and Southern if we don't do something about it.
Any other council members? And I've got one public comment.
I'd have to back Ron up on that. My having been to those first meetings with Cleveland and Frank Spence, and having been to 2 of the meetings that Ron went to, it seemed like they wanted to work with us, and everybody wanted to work with us, but in the end, the matrix was pretty much, I don't know what's the word, it was fixed. So it all really relates to what's their construction cost. Everything else was an irrelevancy. You know, whether people wanted to sell their property, whether we wanted it to be here or there, any of that ranked so low in their ranking that in the end, it really was how many pipes do I have to lay in, and the fewest gets it. And if you look, that's what happened with every single one. The shortest distance won, and they made this gigantic scientific awesomeness so that it confused the crap out of everybody, but to me, it's pretty obvious. Whatever's the closest thing is what they get.
One of my concerns is that all of the pond siding and everything else, I don't know that it's going to help our drainage, because historically that's the lowest part of Los Angeles Groves. Years ago, when we talked about any kind of water storage capability, we always talked about it being at the north end of Los Angeles Groves to allow it then to drain naturally into the canals and flow to the south. And you know, so by putting this stuff and taking the additional water in there, I don't know that it isn't maybe going to impact the people along there greater than the problems we have now.
I think I heard in the meeting that they're just going to run it into the C-51, so it's really going to have negligible effect on us. They're just going to take their water off the road, pond it there, and then
Run it under side.
overflow it under the road. But, you know.
Now, the one thing we do need to do, if they use Ms. Drysdale's property, and I would hope that would be commercial before they have a chance to buy it, but if they use her property, then we have to be able to route water into that pond to go into the C-51. The main problem we've got along the front of Loxahatchee right now is the berm. I'm assuming that DOT put that berm up. Somebody put that berm up. That hasn't always been there, okay? And that berm contains water into the front of Loxahatchee. Years ago, we had a pond, which is somewhere in the vicinity of where this one is going to go. And that pond, the sole purpose of that pond up here in front of Loxahatchee was for the residents to drain water into that pond, and then the overflow went into the C-51. And if anybody knows who put that berm up there, I'm believing it was FDOT that put that berm up. But that berm has locked us in to where water cannot go. You've got all the drains along Southern Boulevard. When a major storm comes, when it hits us, you've got a canal there. Okay, but once within hours, that canal is gone. If they pump the C-51 down, the water goes out. But our residents don't have access to those drains to put our water into the C-51. So we've got, hopefully we'll have an engineer coming on board soon. Those are some priorities that we need to look at. We need to take care of the problem, because we didn't used to have that problem here.
Okay. Any other council members? Joe Lada?
Well, on the E-Road, and E-Road is probably a good term. The one they chose there, just west of Loxahatchee Avenue, that's the one I favored all along. I don't give a tinker's damn about commercial along Southern Boulevard. We're gonna have enough. I like the idea of having it there. It drains off the people from Tangerine with getting the water down to C-51, that's fine. It breaks up the commercial. If you let commercial go all the way along Southern Boulevard, you just put a blinder on one side and you're driving west in Largo, down the main road. Just commercial, commercial, commercial. Okay. If we break it up, remove it from commercial potential with something like this, like it does everybody a world of good. Second, I got a question, is the property up on F, you said had an environmental problem?
Yes.
That's, if I'm not mistaken, looking at that, isn't that Merle Young's oak trees?
No.
That's Merle Young. One of them was Merle's, but the other one was the one that we were hoping to get a joint unit with.
South of Burleson.
Oh, okay, was that a really old house on it? Yeah, okay.
And at one point, the vice mayor is right, it was like ranked second, I believe, during the meeting, and then it ended up dropping fourth based upon the new information that they provided that was environmental in nature.
Okay. But anyway, in fighting for where these go, I'd like to see a mix, back and front. And some along Southern Boulevard to break up and cut down the amount of commercial. How much heat have y'all taken just by putting some in already? You're asking for more heat? I don't think I got with that.
And which one did you say you like, Bill? The one east of Loxahatchee?
I guess they're pointing to Nancy's property.
No, that's west.
Oh, it's west? No, west of Loxahatchee Avenue, that's the one.
Okay.
Yeah, rated 1.
Okay, great.
Yeah, 'cause there isn't one to the east, is there?
Yes.
Yes.
No, do them both. Absolutely.
But the
Okay.
railroad property.
Yeah, all right, moving to, we need to do anything with that?
No, so that was just a report for your information.
Okay. Yeah, I think we're gonna still need to try to get some more input with them, and I don't know what the process is gonna be and who we need to talk to.
I expect it is gonna be an ongoing process, because, usually those kind of projects are get a little rocky, they're gonna probably have some fights, and, they're.
Typically is, you almost have to find somebody further up the food chain,
Mhm.
that maybe we can influence through, if we're gonna have a legislator here at the next meeting, maybe we need to incorporate his help in finding somebody in this to help us determine where we want this.
That's an excellent idea, both for that and for the signal as it relates, since we
Yes.
have Representative
Yeah,
Pat.
because these two will affect our community a lot. And if we're dealing with the ones down at the bottom, Tom is right, they're just looking for we found out with 140th and E Road years ago, an engineer draws a straight line and he says, that's the road. And, we've got to get to a person farther up the food chain, so. All right, moving to item 10B, speed humps. Jim?
I thought we had moved this into our first June meeting, but since it was on there, and we did have a couple of people not here, unless someone brought it up, but I thought we were doing a June meeting on this, an update, we're going to incorporate engineering, a new engineer, and then recommendations, and that was, I thought Vice Mayor Gerald had asked for that to be done in June.
That is correct, I believe it is coming back again. I went ahead and got some additional information, I can.
Additional
tonight, or I
information,
can hold.
always good,
Okay.
bring it on.
Some of the things that we were looking at, we tried to find out who did the speed humps, and it appears that it was done by Wynn and Sons Environmental Constructions Company. I don't have their address, I have to try to find that out. What we found out was the design on Sycamore was roughly 3,000 to 4,000 a hump. The design speed was for the low 30s. Which is like a residential collector type roadway as the county sees it. The good news that I thought was that they indicated that these kind of humps, which is a speed table type, as you're aware of, can be installed on OJIM surface. So,
And did they get put in by the county or combination
by this contractor, I believe, through the county.
through the county?
Yeah. Let's see if there's anything else I can tell you about that.
Well, that's encouraging.
Yeah.
We-
The cost, I guess the total that I have here is this, 2002, it costed $11,670 for 4 humps.
Okay. Well, we'll come back with the engineering involvement as we can by June meeting, and I think it'll be more discussion from the council. I mean, I saw it on there, I know we had moved to June, but also always interested in some answers to questions or things you might be able to provide us, and to alert a couple of council members that we will, I think, take this up in June as a discussion, so that we were getting ready to have an answer to this before we're actually going to ask for anybody to do road work. We would have them design at that
Yeah,
time.
one of the issues we discussed with the councilman was if we wanted to, assuming we get our contracts in place with the engineers relatively quickly, which what we can do, is if you wanted to have our engineering consultant give you a study as it relates from both the particulars of the implementation of, but also, parameters and issues that, because I do some of the consultants we talked to did indicate a concern over their own liability in terms of design, making sure that, would they certify that that's a state design? Should there be, any liability in the absence, that kind of thing. So,
What about our using a design somebody's already using? like a county design, is that something we consider too? Maybe you include that in the discussion with the engineer.
Well, yeah, obviously they would look at that, we would look at that. That would be something that they would, you know.
I think one of the issues in the past is it was the proximity to the canal. And most of the others did not have that involved. And so that kind of changed things. So, yeah, we definitely will look at that. All right, anything else on the speed humps? All right, moving to 10C. This is Ron.
Drainage ditch on Compton Road. We've got our invitation to bid, I think is finalized. We've got I believe CNC loader's gonna handle the vegetation removal and stuff. I'd like to see us, we talked about it last council meeting, but I'd like to see if, I believe the contract, Mark, how close are we to getting the contract? Are we gonna approve it tonight, or?
Well, let me just give you an overview, because we'll talk about it when we get to that particular agenda item, but before you have 4 contracts tonight, I can tell you that I did talk with Steve Yowie, and Mary Vitor and her firm are reviewing the contracts on behalf of the district. I did talk to Johnny Choquette, and he has his attorney looking at his contract. So I can't, you know, we're not ready to sign them tonight, obviously, because I haven't gotten feedback, but I assume we'll have their comments before the week is out. And I guess Mike and I were talking, if they are in agreement with the contract and there are no changes, any material changes, then we can, you know, but if there are changes, we have to come back.
Yeah, that's correct. When we get to that, I think that what Councilman's asking is about, you know, the status, because of course we talked the last meeting, get the contract in place, get the director to get the work. You have the contracts tonight. If you approve them, and if there's no changes or substantive changes other than grammar, correcting, you know, vague terms, whatever, that's one thing. But if there's substantive changes, we're going to have to bring them back before we sign those agreements. So what we're hoping to do tonight is have you approve them, and hope and expect that we won't get much substantive changes because they are consistent with the bids. But if there are, we'll bring them back on the floor.
Not to be always harping on the exact same thing, but I would just like to get the Compton Road turnover from the district, and I would be the first one to go right along with Ron to get this done. And I am not being critical of the district. I am, however, being critical of a process that we decided to do something in October, and we're still sitting here in almost June, being held, I mean, at least I'm being held up by it, because it's documentation that we really should have had, and we could have, if they would just please hurry up and do that. You know, I'm fully with doing this. I just don't know why it takes so forever.
I know that the form of the claim deed has been approved by our office and the attorney's office, and I know it was on the last agenda for the Water Control District. I don't know, maybe someone here can clarify, but I don't believe that they authorized it to be executed and delivered to the town for us to accept. Once they authorize that, then we will prepare a resolution for you to accept that deed. So we need to receive the deed from the district, and the document is done for Compton and Marcella. So I think it's a matter of getting the final approval from the district board, and if I'm speaking out of turn, someone please, Mr. Ryan, correct me.
Any update on that, John?
Yeah.
Writing, so.
Yeah.
Writing out comment.
Welcome to sleep.
Yeah.
As long as you don't go to sleep, John.
Right, you go. John Ryan, 3508 Day Road. The discussion at the district was that we had the paperwork, it was reviewed by our attorney and Mike, and it got down to us providing a quitclaim deed. But the process, as we understood it in the discussion at the district, was that the town, by resolution, would offer to accept the quitclaim deed as drafted, and then the district would authorize the signing and turn it over. It's kind of a chicken egg.
Okay, so we got to offer to accept it by resolution, because I thought we were accepting it by resolution. Let me get something, let me get Merrick and I, if they want something from the town first, you will have it on your agenda June 4th.
Yeah, just that the town was willing to accept the quitclaim deed as structured and
Okay.
reviewed by both attorneys, and if the town was willing to accept the deed, the district was fine with executing.
Okay. I will make sure that whatever needs to be, the documentation's there on the 4th, because I didn't realize that they wanted that before they signed it. That's fine. I just didn't realize it. We'll get it done.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay?
Ron?
All right, now, I realize it's not the residents' fault this is taking so long. But now what about this notice to proceed while we're trying to get all this paperwork cleared up? Now, how can we, in other words, we'll have the vegetation contractor on board. Okay, so we could go with notice to proceed and start the process instead of waiting until our next agenda, right?
I have a form that we put together, we're gonna put it into our language. But basically, it's very simple, and once we have these things ironed out, we do the notice to proceed, and then jobs move forward.
All right,
So do you need a vote? I mean, what do you need from us tonight to carry that
I
out?
don't need anything tonight, I'm gonna go ahead and amend the form so that it's ready to go, once we have both contract approval and acceptance of company.
All right, I've got Bill Loud. You can want this one? No, 11 seat, I'm sorry. My bad. Okay. Moving to item D, the newsletter.
Yes, the only reason I have that on, Your Honor, is I got direction from the council at last meeting, we have that, that's clear. However, at the Water Control Board District, the Water District meeting on Monday night, they had discussed the possibility of doing a joint newsletter with the town. And they had recommended that it go on an IGC committee agenda for discussion. So my purpose here is just to alert you to the fact that we will be discussing that Friday to get a better idea as to if a joint newsletter makes any sense by the town and the district. And the only question I'm looking for is, do you want me to wait to have that discussion, or do you want me to still move forward, as we discussed at our last meeting, on the, moving forward with the notice to the folks on the postcard, if you will, relative to the newsletter?
Okay, acknowledged by council. Tom?
I think it was important last time to do a newsletter. It's important to do a newsletter, and we can talk through and do another newsletter with them jointly sometime down the road. Otherwise, I can see this, we can send Christmas cards to this newsletter.
Okay. Anybody else? Jim?
One of the things that, we talked about this, about putting a newsletter on the website, I think is worth looking at, but in keeping with, I think, the intent and Tom's comments, we need to get something done. The notice out to the community as far as we were included in that, I thought was part of the feedback we were looking for. Now, the amount of feedback we get back is usually limited, but looking for feedback that says you would like it on the website, which if we could publish on the website, and then maybe all we have is the exception, people that can't or don't want to access the website. I don't see why they wouldn't, probably can't versus don't want to. Then we have a list, we have to develop that list, but on the website, the only problem I see with the website, and there's probably some other wrinkles, is that you almost have to have a schedule so that people would know to go look for it. You know, it's, every June 1st, whatever date might be good, and if we do it twice a year, if we do it more than that, whatever, but a schedule. I think if you're gonna put it on the website, it's something people are gonna look for. You need to kind of tell them in advance, don't send out a notice every time you put one out there. I think it should be somewhat, I would think, some kind of regular. But move forward with the mailing. We're looking for feedback. In general, we'll move forward with a newsletter. But get to that point and come back to us next time. Tell us what we got to do.
I don't know how much it costs, but I know a lot of people do read the town crier, and you could put the newsletter, get a half page or a full page and put that in there in addition, because I think with the website, the people that are already dealing with the website are already dealing with it. And but that's not everybody. You know, I doubt my wife is ever gonna go on our website, just randomly, you know, but if something comes in the mail, she'll say, oh, do you see this? So I think that, you know, there's still some old-fashioned folks out there who need to have it sent to them, or need to read it in the paper, or see it that way, so. While I have nothing against putting it on the website, I think it's a good idea. We can deal with different media.
No, I think we said we would probably have a mailing, or at least some. I mean, it's just trying to figure out what that might be, if you don't get
It
enough
doesn't have to
people.
be a mailing, it could be, like I said, it could be in the paper. You know, see, the paper seems to get out a lot of.
Yeah, I'm not sure the coverage.
Not that I want to be showing for the town crier here, but
No, but,
they seem to get a pretty good circulation.
yeah, they do, but I know some people that don't get it, and
I know some people don't get it too.
I think if the half page, as I recall, I don't know if a half page is big enough for us to put a newsletter out, maybe a whole page. That may be quite expensive relative to just a mailing too, so. But all those things, I guess, leave our town management to look at what options we might have.
Sure.
But we
Okay.
gotta move forward with something soon.
Right. No, and I agree. I think that there's like 2 or 3 events per year that are good to address in the newsletter. One of them is always the elections, as to who's running, who's not, what they're running for. Another one is preparation for storm. That would be one where you can include, we're gonna have pickup.
We're going to do that anyway, so maybe that's what.
Yeah, so, you know, things like that could go in there. We could alternate. You've got 5 council members that each time you put one out could write an article basically expressing what they're looking for, what we're doing. To look forward to things, look at things we've accomplished. I just think it's a good idea. I really don't like the idea of combining a newsletter with the water control district. There's too much confusion in the town district already as to which one does what. So, you know, I think that by writing one together, we're just going to cloud the issue that much more. We just need to let people know that they're 2 separate entities and deal with it accordingly. So, I mean, that's just my thought, but anyway, I do think we need to go forward with one. In any venue we can, that we can get the word out to the people.
Mr. Mayor, maybe we can get a consensus from the council on the joint newsletter, because if it's gonna be an agenda item, and we don't want it done that way, or we don't think it's a good idea, let's not put it as an agenda item for Gary.
Okay.
Well, that would be helpful.
Yeah, that'd
in
be-
direction.
Yeah,
I would make a motion that we don't. have to.
okay.
For now, yeah.
Yeah, we can always bring it up.
Consensus, I don't know if there's a motion, but you certainly.
Okay, everybody on board with that, or anybody, you know, really want it a joint letter? Okay,
Yeah.
so consensus-wise,
Okay.
I mean, if there's an announcement, maybe if we want to make some statement about the roads or
Yeah, I
something
agree
down
with
the
you,
road,
yeah.
you know, but
I agree.
I think it is confusing.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right, moving, go ahead, Ron.
It sounded like you want to rush a newsletter out there real quick. I suggest we wait a little while until we bring the engineers and all these things on board, so we'll have some good news to tell the people and tell them why we're bringing the engineers on board. In other words, just to send one out right now, you know, I'd like to have some positive information in there for 2013.
We're doing these roads, you know, we're going to have road contractors, we're organized.
But in other words, Mark, when you send the newsletter out, just make sure we've got a lot of people asking why I can't get my drainage ditch done, why I can't get my road done, and no, we need something in the newsletter that'll give them a little bit of hope for 2013.
Well, it's a good idea, and obviously we want the feedback from the postcards that we send out, but I think, if I'm hearing everybody correctly, I think we're also looking at a number of ways to do the newsletter, and a couple may be on the internet where we can make those kinds of announcements that you're talking about, Vice Mayor, like as far as the engineers, the bidders coming on board and things
Sure.
like that, so.
I mean, it won't hurt to duplicate on the web what you're mailing out. You know, you get the information out. Okay, everybody all right with that one? Moving to item E, and this is 313.
Yeah.
Jim.
Mr. Mayor, last meeting, we really were missing some of the council. I wanted to talk about a couple of points in the policy, and I figured I'd wait till we had more council members here. It's kind of looking at the procedures and asking about how we've been running our meetings and if they've been working. If they're not working, I think the procedures need to be updated or provided for us to help improve what we've been doing. But one of the things that I kind of have to smile when I read that we have to raise our hands, and then the mayor shall announce the order in which the hands were raised and grant the floor in order of the hands were raised. I wouldn't want, Dave, I know you're very capable of doing this, but I wouldn't want you to misspeak because you couldn't keep track of the order everybody raised their hands. I feel like what you've been doing and the way we've been running our meetings have worked fine. So when we get to Administrative Policy 313, we get to policy and second paragraph, where the first sentence reads, any council member desiring to speak must be recognized by the mayor or acting chair, and a period goes there. And then you can you could skip to if the mayor or acting chair desires to participate in the discussion, he or she should do so, and so on. But we could take the raising of the hands and reciting what the order might be. I think now, because I think we've been doing fine without that process. And some of us raise our fingers, some of us raise our fists, some of us raise the thumb. I wouldn't want to write all those in there either. I think you've done fine in identifying who was here. That would be one change. And if I go on, let me go on to everything, and then maybe we can consider as a.
Shall we do them one at a time?
Well, let me go on to all of them, we come back, see if we can't do it one
Okay.
at a time, or together, rather than have separate motions. The other would be, we get into number 8, which is actually, the part that I'm looking at is the beginning of page 3. 8 continues from 2 to 3. We have, you read down through the first sentences and you get to material shall accompany the signed written request. I presume the written request is an email, or that's usually what we would be communicating, I think, with town managers. An email is
Very
written request.
flexible, it could be an email, it could be a handwritten.
Well, I'm just
plan.
assuming that written request is inclusive of email, so I don't need to modify that. We basically say that the town council members can place items on the agenda, and then we say that the town manager has to approve them being placed on the agenda. I'm not sure that that's needed. If the town council member wants it on the agenda, and they can provide the background, and I think that probably just should
Well,
go
what
as.
happens if a town council member wants it on the agenda, the other town council member doesn't?
Well, when we get to the town council meeting, anybody that wants it off the agenda, you'd have to modify this procedure. But I think if the town council member wants it on the agenda, do we have a rule that says you can't put it on the agenda? I don't know how you make that decision. I think a council member wants it on the agenda, we put it on the agenda. And then when we have the meeting, we can discuss as a council whether we want to discuss it, table it, or what do we want to do, I would think.
Right, but I think you're missing the point. If you read all the information before that, that pretty much sets the standard. It's not like I'm making a major call or a decision or trying to stop it. If all of the foregoing happens, it's pretty much a moot point. I'm putting it on the agenda. But somebody's in charge of the agenda moving forward, and that's the town manager.
Well, then, could we say, rather than the sentence that's the subject to this, items must be approved by town manager, just say the town manager will place such items that are referred to above, which would be what you want on, plus its written material. Town manager will place these items on the agenda.
Yeah, when you put together the agenda,
If
yes.
you say, you'll do it, as far as whomsoever this is, Councilman A is going to provide a written request and the backup. And Councilman A does provide the written request and does provide the backup. As he said, there is no call. He just does that. If they don't, well, then he doesn't because they didn't do what they were supposed to do. So taking the approval out, I see what you're saying. Take the approval out, and basically he just does that contingent on the fact that the councilman has done what he's supposed to do, which is provide backup and make a statement.
The issue is if the information weren't provided, because that's something that I discussed with several of you, where there was concern that items were being placed on with no backup whatsoever, and you were being asked to take actions without having appropriate backup. And that's the genesis, and that's the only reason why it's there in the first place.
Well, I think what Tom is saying, that's when I went past the first few sentences, that's already, that's assumed. You've stated those, and that the council is going to provide backup, and they're going to follow that preparation before.
Let's just remove the approval aspect, because I think that's the concern.
Yeah,
Just make clear,
But
when we get to
then,
that, when we get to that sentence, if there's something missing, the town manager throws his hands up and says not coming on, that's part of your policy.
Right.
Okay.
We're all agreeing that we're gonna provide backup.
And if you don't,
Yes.
he's gonna have to give you the bad news, whenever it's done, and say, I didn't put it on because you didn't get me some backup, you didn't provide me.
But the backup can be one piece of paper. I mean, backup has no, we're not setting criteria of backup at this
I'm
point.
certainly trying to be flexible on that, sure. The only, and we did provide for you, 3 down to the bottom, if somebody does, if one of the council members doesn't provide it at all, there's even a waiver procedure, you know, it's like, yeah, this has to get on, you know, and I will go to the mayor and myself and we'll say, okay, then, rather than docketing for another agenda out, we need to address it this agenda.
I mean, the only issue I've got with this is the backup is going on us, and maybe it's an item that we've talked about or dealt with before, and it's kind of got lost in the loop, and one of us want to bring it back up and put it on there.
Well, then the backup, I think, would be.
Then the backup-
There's no question, it's something that we have, we will do
Yes, it's a
that.
brand new item, I agree with you. I agree.
And that's specifically what I did with this policy. I said, I'd like it on the agenda, town staff, please provide the backup, because it's something in writing they have. So I
Yeah,
figured that
something,
was
yeah.
acceptable practice.
So the process is working currently.
Okay, so we're going to take out the items must be approved by town manager before placement on the agenda. We're going to take that line out? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, I think Tom said that items will be placed on
Yeah, will be
the
placed.
agenda by the town manager.
Correct, just will be placed.
Okay.
Items, let's say this, items so provided will be placed.
Items that are provided will be placed, okay. Is that all right? Items that are provided,
Striking the words must be approved and changing.
Per the-
items
per the-
that are provided.
for the above will be placed on the agenda. Okay, and then moving on,
What do you, I'm sorry, what, items?
Striking the words must be approved and replacing it with items so provided or items provided to the town manager will be placed on the agenda. It's just a positive statement, you know.
I got it, I just wanted to get it.
okay. Then, moving on with that paragraph, my comment at the bottom, you know, you have a waiver there on there, Mark,
Yeah.
is that the council may add an agenda item at the scheduled meeting date. It's up to the council at the meeting date, if the council member brings up an item to be added. Hopefully, it's something that needs to be done, it's last minute, truly last minute, and the council decides if they add it to the agenda, they approve the agenda. So that has always been our practice, and I would presume we would always have that, but it doesn't state it anywhere. And I want to be careful that we state that the council at its, you know, that the council will approve adding something. A council member can bring it up, but the council has to approve adding to the agenda. That can be done at the meeting, right up to the day and time of.
That's one way of addressing it. The only reason why it's addressed the way it is here is hypothetically, let's say a council member has what they consider to be that exigent circumstance. But they have, maybe they don't have the paperwork themselves or the information, but they want town staff to get it. And obviously it puts us in a position of trying to get the agenda out, and now this is going to slow it down. That was the reason for me writing, okay, the town manager and the mayor would have to, the mayor is just approving the item being on, not giving us any particulars of it or anything along those lines as far as, you know.
What if this is intended to address the issue or the deadline is coming past, but you want, maybe this sentence could be written that, you know, an addendum shall be provided and the council shall be asked to add it to the agenda. In that way, you know, if you miss a deadline, you do it as an addendum that's provided the night of the meeting.
I do like that one, yeah, that way.
And then you're requested that night at the council decide whether it's a type of item that you're comfortable adding or not, based on when you got the
Right,
information.
right. Well, I think that works out well, and it gives us the information we need, and it allows something to come up later, and you provide the same kind of backup and so on. I mean, and as a practice, if that happens on Friday, you could send out an addendum item to the council on Friday, say this is something that the council member X wants to maybe consider tonight at the meeting. we could also have it to look at beforehand, and then, not just tonight in the meeting, you bring it up, but you could tell us beforehand, knowing that the agenda was set under the criteria that we had and issued, and then maybe an addendum. I think the addendum idea is a good one. That would work for me, because I know there's always things that could come up.
I think it's a great idea. In fact, Mike and I pretty much, because a lot of times, we consult on the agenda as well for purposes of construction of it. And I think in the time that I've been here, and in conjunction with Mike, I think the only time we ever had what I would call a carry-on item was strictly due to timing, that was the North Road OJ. I can remember. We try very hard to make sure we're not getting you cold with items at a meeting,
Sure.
that you have to. But, if this is going to be the process, I think the addendum works very well.
So we can strike that last sentence and replace it with the addendum concept.
Okay. All right, Tom?
And I just want to say, we need to be cognizant of the fact that any procurement issues the IGO needs to be made aware, so we can't really bring up procurement issues short term.
Right.
Yeah,
That's an emergency.
That would be a problem.
We could always discuss it, can't rule on it because of the IG situation.
My intent has always been that we don't catch our homeowners and residents by surprise. All of a sudden, we walk into a meeting, oh, by the way, we're going to discuss this. It's a real game changer, and we
And we
make a
can say
decision.
no procurement and no new taxes.
It could be. I just, but at the same time, if we're doing it this way, are we going to even have a motion to accept the agenda? Because it's already locked in before the meeting, then why do we need additions or corrections or, additions to the agenda?
So by putting an addendum in there, we allow that.
Maybe for the purpose of adjustment would be the answer to your
And I think that there's some things that maybe if one of us have an issue we want to bring up and talk about, and we don't vote on it, but it's to bring it out. We all have the sunshine we contend with, which means sometimes we need to get up here and just kick ideas around. And I like that, to be able to do that, rather than at the end by the comments by the supervisors. So if we come in and say, I just talked to my neighbor and he's got a problem with this, and it's something that, so I mean, I like the idea of getting all the backup and everything else through there, but at the same time, I like the idea that we can bring up items to talk about.
I think, generally speaking, we've always had, town council member comments at the
Right.
end. I think the concern is when things are added and they become an action item at the same meeting.
Okay.
If it's added for discussion purposes, then that discussion purposes can be bring it back for action at the next meeting.
Right.
I think that's where we get caught a little bit off guard when an action item is brought to us for the first time, and you see me.
No, I don't agree. I
all that.
don't think we should move forward.
And that's what I always thought additions and release, or emergencies, exigent circumstance, there's always gonna be something like that.
Okay.
But what an addendum could do is if we get in the process, and folks who look for your stuff online or whatnot, if it can be posted by, end of business Monday or something, at least folks have an opportunity to look
Sure.
right before the meeting and see if there's been any addendums issued.
Yeah,
The agenda.
that's what I was thinking, you could put the addendum down there in addition, because it's, proposed agenda plus any addendum items. Now, in conjunction with this discussion, which is not mentioned in here, if we have a cutoff on Tuesday noon, can we not have the agenda out by Wednesday noon? Not the addendums, just the agenda. If we're cutting it off, or I assume there's some benefit to that, to the council where we could see it, because you may recall, that was something that we've wanted to do forever, and hopefully this would get us to do that.
Well, the reason for the cutoff is so that staff internally, the town attorney can go over the draft agenda and make sure we have all our ducks in a row, if you will. I know when I got your email this time, and you indicated, will we be getting it out, we were working feverishly with the town attorney to get the contracts out, to do review, to get them to the vendors. There was no way that was gonna happen as you had requested in your email. So there are some agendas that is possible. I can't say that would be the case for everyone, it just depends on what the agenda items are.
Well, my thought was that what I would do is something like agendas, then schedule for distribution to the town council by noon on Wednesday, where if you have to put that in there, but having it earlier, the thing that bothers me about the assumption that every weekend I have to spend going over the agenda, whereas I'd like to maybe do it on Thursday night or Friday or during the day, being that I'm trying to do less work and more fun. But, you know, at more leisure, but the weekends, always make, that's the weekend I have to work on this. I'd rather be able to have a little more flexibility, and I don't mind having a cutoff, but I want to see something that we benefit as a council from that cutoff. And I know you've been struggling to try to meet the deadlines of getting it out on the week prior, and this, I thought, was a way to get there. If you strive to get that accomplished with this process, which it seems like the process would help that tremendously, then I would ask that you note that it's scheduled, your plan or your, that's what your target is, to get it out on noon the following day. And we have
We can
Wednesday,
certainly try to get
Thursday,
that.
Friday,
End of business.
if we can do.
What end of business? Because we don't know what comes up, we the new deadline on that Tuesday, but there may be stuff that the ones in the office till Wednesday morning.
So end of business Wednesday?
Is that fair? And then addendum would be distributed no later end of business on Monday?
Yeah. Yeah, I had actually picked close of business Tuesday, so that's fine.
No, I'm sorry.
No, that's why I was compromising
trying to be
24 hours later.
reasonable, because I know I'm involved in this too. And if I'm not in the office for
That's
a
fine.
certain period of time on Tuesday afternoon,
I'm just trying to improve it. If we can get it close of
I
business
have some
Wednesday,
self-interest in that.
that gives me some time.
All right, any other changes?
No, so I would like to make a motion.
All right, let's find out if we've got any other changes. Anybody else? Any changes? We'll do all at one time. Ron?
I would like to say we don't need as many roll calls.
And I would be all for that. I mean, was there something wrong with the way we were doing it before? Or you just didn't have a record of how we voted?
No, there was sometimes when we weren't sure on the direction, if everybody was, you know, we set consensus, but you're not always sure. So, I mean, the biggest thing, and I think Mike would agree, is action items, we definitely need to have a roll call.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I could see a couple things. I mean, you could require roll call on formal things like ordinances and resolutions. You could do, if you call for a voice vote, then at the very least, the mayor or the chair should announce the vote.
And I'll do that.
You know, that it's unanimous, or it's 4-1, or it's 3-2. So I've had experience where it wasn't announced and somebody was in the minutes and voting for something in a different place, and they swore up and down that they voted against it, and there was,
I got you.
you know, so there has to be some clear record, and you know, I think the formality of ordinances, you know,
Okay.
particularly anything that has a public hearing, a roll call.
Yeah, I would agree. I would
You
agree.
know, but otherwise, if you do a voice vote, then the chair or the mayor must announce the result.
And I will clarify that.
So that helps us all.
Things like approving the agenda, stuff like that, that's,
Okay.
Where was that for?
that's in, let's see.
Yeah, that would be the thing. If we could just do it on action items or ordinances, things like that.
Okay, that sounds good.
How about a roll call vote shall be recorded, shall be done for ordinances and resolutions.
And anything else you absolutely need it for.
An action, it's an action.
Any action item?
item.
Well, I don't know about action items, just so we're trying to
Everything
get
you do is
direction.
action.
Everything is
Every
action.
direction is an action.
Let's do resolution and ordinances, and if we could leave it up to,
And
If
any other matter.
you say, I interpret your consensus to be this, then that's what it is if no one says otherwise.
You're gonna hear me say that a lot, because I
Well,
wanna
then
make
that's
sure
what-
that
that's-
three of you are
I think
recommending.
that's better, I think that's better, because that way we're hearing from you what the action you're gonna.
Well, if I don't say it, then
Yeah,
you,
I'll,
yes. Okay,
I'll raise my hand.
okay, sounds good. Ron, did you have something you want to add?
Just a last comment. I agree with all these changes. The only one that I felt was improvement. In the past, I've had residents ask me, when are we going to get control of our meeting? We have times where people speak out, council members and stuff like that. Now, I personally don't have a problem with raising my hand because it's courtesy to the chair, and I don't think he would have a problem keeping the order. Or if me and Tom both had our hands raised, it doesn't matter whether Tom goes before me or after me. But the raising of the hands, I think the main purpose of that was to keep us from speaking out while another council member is trying to speak his piece, and that's why I support that, but I can go either way. I would hope that we get more organized and have respect for each other, where we will hold our talk until we're acknowledged by the chair. But that was the purpose of raising the hand. I
And
respect.
I think the key is, I will do my best to recognize, if I catch your sign that you want to speak, but, I just don't want to see us.
That's right.
Push a button in our life.
Yeah. Whoever pushed the button first. Yeah, okay. All right, so with these changes,
You want me to go through them?
Would you go through them and we could make a motion for it?
Do you want to do each one separately? or-
Let's do them together.
Okay, so I have, this is what I would propose, basically a discussion. In policy number 2, after acting chair, put a period, take out the rest of that sentence, and then the following sentence that picks up with, if the mayor acting chair desires to participate in the discussion. Okay? Number 5, change the second sentence to say, roll call votes shall be done on all resolution and ordinances. On voice votes, the mayor or chair shall announce the result of the vote immediately after it concludes.
Right.
Okay? Or you know what, forget, you can still announce that on roll calls. So we'll just say the mayor shall announce the result on all votes. On number 5, on number 8, page 3, delete the sentence that says items will be approved by the town manager for placement on the agenda and replace with items so provided to the town manager will be placed on the agenda.
Yes.
Okay, and then remove the last sentence in that section. It says an item that is requested by a council member after the deadline. For an item that is requested by a council member after the deadline, an addendum to the agenda shall be provided to the town council and considered as an amendment to the agenda at the meeting.
That starts with the sentence that was failure to adhere, is that what you did there?
No, I struck the waiver sentence and replaced it with that sentence.
No, I think you need to start at the failure to, because that really is where we start that process of saying that there's nothing further it would be put in.
Okay, so strike the last 2 sentences?
Yeah, I would do that with what you said.
Okay, I'll strike the last 2 sentences and replace it with the sentence.
Say that again.
If an item is requested by a council member after the deadline, an addendum to the agenda shall be provided to the town council and considered as an amendment to the agenda at the meeting. Okay? And then I was going to add paragraph 12, and this is where I was to say where possible, agenda material shall be distributed to the town council by the end of business on Wednesday, and addenda by the end of business on Monday.
No later than,
No later.
because if he wants to distribute it Friday, he can do it.
Right. Okay.
Okay, all right. I'll entertain a motion.
Yeah, I make such a motion as outlined by our illustrious council.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Ron. Further discussion? All in favor signify by
You
saying.
haven't changed it yet, you gotta do roll call.
Okay.
That's-
Roll call.
I was relishing that, I was waiting.
Okay, roll call.
Councilmember
Yes?
Vice Mayor Giro,
Yes.
Councilman Liang,
Yes.
Councilman Bossman, and Mayor Vernon.
Yes, the results are unanimous. 5-0. All right, moving to, let's take a break. Go back to 5 minutes.
Rice Krispies, one of my back.
America resist.
You got this. That, you know what, it's so hard. I'm an old horse, an old dog, new tricks, and it's just hard to do that. All right, moving to item 10F.
Looks like me again. I had asked county management to give me an update on, in my notes, request to put it on, if there's any update we can provide. And I also had another reason for one agenda to cover. Is there any new news on Dean and Oki?
Yeah, we're moving. The update is this. There are two issues. The erection and installation of a signal is basically two issues. Procurement and site improvements. Now, previously I came to you and I told you about site improvements. They haven't been totally determined, or at least the county hasn't shared to a great extent what the improvements are, so I don't have a dollar figure and I don't know how detailed they're going to be. In terms of the procurement, pretty much, the county staff were too far around signalization indicated that it's really up to the town how they want to procure the item. Tonight you have on your agenda the issue of ratifying a traffic engineering consultant. The traffic engineering consultant that we have selected just so happens to be the traffic engineering consultant that is on piggyback with the county, because I've already talked, all my information has come from them. They're a very good traffic engineering firm. It seems to me that it's a better way to procure it by having our own traffic engineering consultant doing it, because we still haven't sat down under CCNA to work out an arrangement. But obviously, we may have better prices by having our own consultant work on it rather than do it a piggyback route. Also, the Pearl Underwood and I attended a meeting of the OIG relative to contract monitoring and management, and the OIG is taking a dim view of piggybacking because a lot of cities are I don't want to say they're abusing it, I don't want to make that charge, but the piggyback is not always apples to apples, and you have to make sure unit prices and everything else is done appropriately on the piggyback, the scope, everything. So we're ready, as soon as we get our traffic engineering firm on board, and if it looks like it's a better way to go, which I think it's going to be, we're going to move for the signal.
Okay. That sounds good. Mark, thank you. One of the other things that we discussed briefly when last time we had this on the agenda was that Mark came back from a meeting with the county, and they had said that the traffic light had to be these, what do you call it, stanchion or whatever?
Mast arm.
Mast arm. And I remember Councilman Gerald felt like that was a good idea, we had to go that way. But I'm raising the issue one time for the full council to chime in on the traffic light stanchion, mast arm. Recognizing we have two traffic lights on either end of the town on Oki, neither one of them are the mast arm. The county, if we are moving forward, which we are, to put up a traffic light, I would like to at least push back a little bit and say, well, hey, we've got two cable lights out here. It's still Okeechobee, same road. It's a lot cheaper, and the site improvements, I think, are much less. That the council would give you direction, one way or the other, that we want to, yes, we accept the mast arm, or no, we would, because I think the cost is about half, if not less than half, for a cable. And if we've got two on our road, east and west, I don't see why we have to step into the latest and greatest, or if the county is, likes to do that, but they have a lot more money. But I think we have something that we can show, say, hey, we've got two that work fine, and they're still there. We've had a number of hurricanes a few years back. I imagine they might have been damaged, but they're there and they're working fine. Why can't we go with that, and it's less expensive? I know we want to go to the county and say, we'd like you to pay for this once we get it done, but I'd rather go in with a half price that I'm asking to get paid for two reasons. One, if we don't get any help, it's not as much out of our pocket. Two, it's less to ask the county for. So I think there's plus on both of those cases. So I raise it to the council to discuss whether we agree on a mast arm as our first approach, or if we put that as a secondary only if they drag us kicking and screaming to make us do a mast arm, and we can't get them off of the idea of that and go with a cable. So I'm raising that for the council to discuss.
Okay, Tom?
I like to say that it seems to me as like a typical example of the county, since we're paying for it, designing the very best for us to pay for. So it's, and I agree with you, we do need to look for them to do two things. One is to realize that to make us do something that's at a higher standard when they themselves don't do it is, you know, it's just that. It's making us upgrade to the 21st century while they're way behind. And also, I do think we should probably, while there's still an opportunity, be doing some more lobbying towards getting them to say, hey, we'll pay half, or hey, we'll pay something. Because right now, we really don't have it, and we keep moving ahead. You know, we have no guarantee that we're ever going to get a dime back. So, you know, I'd like to see if we need to speak to Commissioner Santa Maria or whomsoever it takes, that we move towards doing that so that we can, you know, because we have other things to spend our money on than putting traffic lights on county roads.
Good deal. Ron?
We've already spoke with Commissioner Santa Maria, and basically when we go to the county, we gotta know how much to ask them to pay for. Now, while we've been doing this, we've got an engineer coming on board. I would like to see before we decide whether we want a mast or we want a cable. I'd like for a professional engineer to tell me the cost of cable compared to the cost of mast. And if we're gonna get it for half price, now, when we talked to the county about prices, it wasn't twice as much to do the mast. But what I'm getting at, we've got an engineer coming on board now, and before we decide on what style we want, I would like to get the estimated cost for a cable or a mast. It doesn't matter. They say that there's reasons why they use masts, but we don't have to get the best as long as we've got something that works. Now, we have to have cost. Commissioner Santa Maria said, we don't need to waste his time, okay? When we approach the county commission, we need to go in full force. We need to have an amount that we're asking them to pay for, and we need to have the people there to support it. So let's get some prices, let's decide on, and when we get ready to move forward, if we've got prices set in stone, then we can start getting organized, and we can go to the county commission and ask them to do what's right and pay for their own red light on their own road. So that's what we need. We need prices, estimated costs and stuff. And it sounds like we're getting ready to move ahead, so.
Okay. Ryan, comments?
I personally would prefer the cable just because I know it's cheaper. And if we are paying for it, we don't need a mast. We just need a light. I don't care if it's on a cable or a mast on, but we need to save money. The money that we save is the money we can use elsewhere.
Okay, so everybody in agreement to wait until we get the engineer, get him to work with us on that, and we'll get a number. Okay, so all five of us are in agreement on that. Consensus. Okay, moving to, same thing, different road. MG. Same road.
That's mine. I spoke with Mark about this, and we spoke with the FDOT. There's Mr. Hughes, I believe it is waiting for a reply from us to kind of like justify why we want a red light at Southern and D Road. And we were kind of hesitant. We didn't want to give him a quick reply because if they do the same thing to us as they did with the pond sightings, then we need to just forget about it and take our chances with a major thoroughfare without a red light. Because their game plan is we don't need a red light. We can't justify it because we've got one at B Road and F Road. And what they don't realize and what they don't seem to care about that we need to get the point across to them is D Road is the main street of the town of Loxahatchee Groves. Okay, and right now we're having accidents. It's dangerous to try and leave the post office, Boonies, the office, or whatever to get on Southern Boulevard, and it's not a major thoroughfare yet. And we have accidents, and we have people hurt, and we route from Folsom or from B Road from F Road to B Road when we have some major accidents. Now, what I'm thinking is, I realize the state requires a traffic study, and we've got an engineer coming on board. I'd like to know approximately how much a traffic study would cost. As far as I'm concerned, it's kind of like the same situation with the county. I think the state should have to pay for it, but now if the state does it, then chances are they may pull some things that wouldn't help us. If we do it ourselves, then we may have more honest control of the traffic study. But no matter what, that's the one thing they said they needed was a traffic study. Now what I believe that we've got Florida Forestry at Collecting Canal and D Road. We've got the fire department at Station 21, just east of D Road. D Road is their main access when they support Wellington, when they head east or west, these major brush fires. They don't go over to F Road, they don't go to B Road. They take the closest road they have to get to Southern Boulevard. And so I've talked to the forestry. They're supposed to get me a letter to give to the state why they feel like we need a red light at Southern. I've talked with the fire department. The battalion chief out here is going to communicate with the head chief, see if we can get a letter from Palm Beach County Fire Rescue. I told him if there's a problem there, please let me know. I'll go talk to him personally. So a letter from PBSO. I see PBSO all the time. I spoke with Lieutenant Combs. He gave me a major's number. Haven't had a chance to communicate with him, and it might be more professional if the town communicates with these people. But PBSO Lieutenant Combs said he feels for us, he agrees with us, but his upper echelon is going to have to tell him, write a letter, they're going to have to write a letter. But we need letters from these people that work in emergency situations. I believe stuff like that will help us. We may, petitions from the residents. I'm telling you, if we want this red light, we got to do more than do a traffic study, because they can make that traffic study work any way they want to. But we can also make it, if we talk about a newsletter, if we do the traffic study, we're going to know when the study is going to be done. We can get the residents to pull together, and we can make the traffic happen. A lot of people will not use D Road. They would love to use D Road, but they go to F Road and they go to B Road because it's too dangerous. So that's basically where I stand on that. We're going to have to put something into this if we want a red light at Southern Boulevard and D Road, and it's going to take more than the state requirements to do it.
Okay, anybody else? Again, I think that's something that we need to bring up with our representative Packard. Maybe we can get with him if you want me to call him or whatever. Prior to that meeting in June, we'll give him a couple of these concerns, and maybe he can come back to us and see if we can get this out.
I would just add, I did some research, consulted the manual on the uniform traffic studies, and it appears, I don't know if they're looking for this data at this point or not based upon the email exchange, but there are 8 warrants that you need to satisfy in order to get a traffic signal. I'll just go through them very quickly. One is 8-hour vehicle volumes, one is 4-hour vehicle volumes, one is peak hour, one is the pedestrian volume, one is school crossings, one is a coordinated signal system, one is crash experience, and one is the roadway network. So it sounds like, obviously, I don't know if you have to satisfy each warrant in order to justify the signal. I mean, Vice Mayor's talking about obviously getting letters of support. That's always good. Obviously, the crash experience, I think, is going to be a big one. But, right now, I get the feeling based upon the email that FDOT is looking for maybe some numbers or something that we can provide. I don't know if we're at that point. I could probably give them anecdotal type arguments, but I think, we're probably going to have to look at considering a traffic study and, I guess determining cost, but I think obviously you're going to have to look at this scientifically in order to probably get FDOT to move a little bit. I mean, you can do all the other stuff, but I think you're going to have some kind of evidence to justify it.
And I think, Mr. Mayor, what you said about representatives may be really the thing, because traffic studies and all this, it's starting to just spin calorie judge around in my head. We can spend a whole ton of money doing these studies for this one and that one. In the end, they just, as Ron says, they do right if they want to do anyhow. So, you know, and that's sort of where we are here. I don't really see throwing good money after that. We need more like pressure. And I think that probably Mark Packard could tell us if we're just kind of back against the wall or if there's a, you know,
But one of the things I think is important is that the historical part. We've been a community here since 1917. That road has been open since 1917. You know, so people have been going out of that. So to come in and say, well, now you've got to change your traffic patterns, you know, after all that time, I think is wrong. And I mean, if you went by that criteria, probably the light at B Road wouldn't qualify, with the exception of what comes out on the Wellington side. And that, you know, that adds to that. But
you notice both traffic lights are where Wellington needs to cross.
sure.
None of them are where we need it.
Okay.
We're lucky they let us put a road in.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say, I think my first approach is going to be to email Mr. Hughes back and try to get him to define more specifically what they want, and I'll give him some general information and see if I can create that dialogue. Because I don't like the open-ended way of it. It's almost looking like I'm a lamb going into a slaughter, terminating upon what I say here, you know. So I want to make sure that, you know, we know exactly what they're looking for us to give them in terms of a justification, if you will.
Yeah, I support that Mark, but I would like the mayor, that if it's either timing is after we get something back or not waiting, I would just support you contacting Mark and talk to him a little bit about what we're facing, what we're doing, and he may have some guidance, like Tom said, he may tell you he's tried this before and it's a battle you're not going to win, or whatever he might give us. But I support the idea of us directing, you know, if you would take that on. I know Mark's got a legislative discussion in the town hall meeting at the end of May, but we would like him to maybe have his ear and we can talk about
He's
it.
a very first meeting with you.
Yeah, so I would like to prep him on that, see if he can tell us anything, if he can do anything for us.
Sounds good. All right. Everybody all right with that? All right, moving to, I've got one public comment. Bill, love it to you. And you.
So out of E-Road, I like the arguments Ron made on there with safety for us. That's great work, great work. Yeah, we definitely need that light there. I mean, that's ridiculous. When they, Waxahachie Country Plaza, they're supposed to have a light there when it was still 2 lanes. You know, whatever. Back to D and Southern completely. Even with the light and the development along there, that's why I'm always in favor of breaking it up a bit. You need to get something else north of Southern for a little east-west connectivity sometime. When we used to come down the boonies without going on to Southern. Of course, it was right over here. But, you know, whether it's a side road, I hate to go back behind to do that, because that's moving everything to the north. But, you know, so you come to D, but if you want to go over here again, you go to Avenue. Let's see, current engine. Oh, I don't know if Ocean or DOT paving from State Road 80 to Collecting Canal would help the look and the feel for DOT. Because, you know, they're going to look at, okay, you want to light at a dirt road and one of our big roads, huh? Okay, so maybe, I hate to use the word develop that, or, anyway, whatever you can do, and definitely, you know, if we need to do petitions and all that, to do that, that light is way, way past time. One of the warrants there is, I brought that up when we were talking to the engineers during the selection process. Yeah, there's a warrant there, 3 deaths. Yeah, I always thought that was a rumor. It's true. That's bloody ridiculous. Whatever you can do.
Thank you, Bill. All right, moving to 11A. Mark.
Thank you, Your Honor. As I mentioned earlier in some of our old business items, Basically, these are the contracts, A and B, under 11, new business 11. You awarded the road grading, rock material, road repairs, emergency call out to the water control district, and the mowing and vegetative removal services to CC Loader. Both entities were provided with the contracts, the three to the water control district and CNC's contract. As I indicated, Mr. Choquette advised me that his attorney is currently looking at that contract. And I spoke with Mr. Yohe today. Mr. Yohe advised me that he has sent the contracts on to Mary Viator, and the attorneys for Caldwell Pachetti are reviewing those. So I would expect that by later this week, we'll have input from both entities. At this point in time, I don't have any information that there are any problems with the contracts. I think the town attorney did a good job of getting the contracts done with his staff. And we, in turn, made some minor modifications and got them out. So I think we're at a point very closely where we'll be able to get these contracts signed and then start to move forward with the notice to proceed on certain projects as the council deems appropriate.
Okay, so you're saying we basically need to hold off on these two until we get information back from them?
Well, you can actually approve the contract.
You can do one of two things. You can hold off until we get it finalized with both entities, or you can approve them, subject to any non-substantive changes. With substantive meaning would change the terms or conditions. If there's grammar, or if there's clarifications and duplications, I would think that would be something we could fix. But if someone comes back and instead of wanting, 30 or 45-day turnaround on a bill, they want 15 days or something like that, we would have to bring that back to you. We just don't know. We were hoping and expecting we're not going to have any substantive changes, but again, that usually doesn't play out.
Okay.
I would just think it would be better, being that we are the person who's doing the contracting and they're the ones doing the work, that we let them sign the contract and then we afterwards. It just seems to me more that it's always been my experience that that's how it works. Both in private contracting and government contracting, is usually the person who's going to do the work signs the invitation, gives it to them.
So we would go ahead and approve these, and then they would sign them?
We could approve the form of the contract, but rather, before we give them the go-ahead, I think we want to get them back and have them say that.
Yeah, we're not going to sign it.
Without any.
We're not going to sign it.
So you're basically looking for approval for these two?
Yeah, approval for all four of them. And then if we get something back, we're going to bring it back to you before we sign it.
I have no changes to these contracts.
Okay. All right.
Mr.
Somebody else all right?
I had some items I wanted to raise for each of the contracts.
Okay.
I think we can talk about them tonight. If we have any changes, we can make them tonight. Depending on the degree. Of course, Mike was commenting on it, but if we have something new, we can get that to the parties. Very quick turnaround, and then while they're still looking at them, they haven't already come back to us. I think it'll still fit in. And we've had an opportunity to maybe touch them up a little bit. Because I had some general flavors of things through each of the contracts, but I also had some that were specific to each of the contracts. So if we want to go through them, we can start with the first one. I have some items I'd like to talk about.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. First of all, conceptually, we have services we are contracting with service providers for services that my understanding was it is identifying who's going to provide the service, but the service generation, requests, et cetera, is the same thing we've had in the past. We have somebody come and call us and say we need something done. We have somebody that calls the water control district and they forward the request to us and we approve it. But it's the same routine, it's by request. It could be somebody in the water control district that's out on the road and said they see something, they could come back to their staff and that could come to the town. But the process is that it's based on request, and we're also, we want to be responsive to the folks in the community, and so we probably need some level of performance for each of the contracts that we would expect. For example, if you would ask for a road to be graded, you wouldn't want to wait a month for it to be done. That's an example. So, but if we look through each of the documents, starting with the first town roads in Base Rock, item 2.1, where we say, in this particular one, we say, second sentence, this list may be amended by the parties. In some of the contracts, we say by the town. So one thing is kind of grammatical, if I will. We say that this list may be amended by the town in all cases, because it goes on to say that it would have to be approved by both parties anyway. So it would be consistent if we say town, and I think it may be only this particular one of the four. I haven't kept record of exactly how many, but I noticed in one of the others that it says it was amended by the town, and this one is amended by the party. So I would just try to suggest we make that one change that would be consistency. I don't see that we need to, I don't think parties is applicable. I think it's the town says the road list could be changed. Because we do have specific cases, we have a half dozen or maybe 4 roads that, based on the schedule, are no longer the roads that we would ask them to grade. In some cases, they've never graded them at that length. You know, so there's roadways that the town manager, I would say, you know, we haven't changed the length of that particular road when it comes to grading. So just something that the town would do, and I think that's a simple change. The other change is a little more involved, but it doesn't do anything more than state what we've been doing. Under item 2.3, we say that in the second sentence, well, let me just read it quickly. The district shall grade all road segments identified by town up to twice per month if needed at the discretion of the town, as is confirmed in advance in writing by the town manager. And all I did there was, I believe the practice is, and Mark, you correct me, that on occasion there's a designee that can approve the work. You've had it in terms of the past based on amount, I think. Then I would add, after town manager or designee. But I would then go on to say using, and we've been using a road request form that as I'm working with the town water control district staff, they seem to like the form. A few tweaks to it would make it work a little better for them. I've already made some of those notations and given them to Denise to have, and I don't know if she's covered that with you or not. That was in working with the town water control district. But I would go on to say using, instead of calling a road request, I think it was request for services like the form, and it was for the town of Loxahatchee Groves. It would be the title of the form. But anyway, putting in there that we use the completed request for service with a work order number assigned. That was one of the requests they asked if you actually sign a number to the order. And then the work order would include scope and time of completion. Now the scope, if we could use the current form, you check a box and it says we want road grading. And the description is San Diego Drive. So that scope is pretty much there already. The other thing that we don't say is time of completion. And I think the council, I'm looking for input from the council to say what is a reasonable time of completion. I think we need to have something. When you ask for a road to be graded, that we would expect it to say take 5 working days or 7 working days or 5 to 7 working days, but I think there's some degree expectation of completion that we would have in the scope, in the request for service, Mark. You could put in there, you know, completion by, and just pick a date, or request completion by. But I think we need, you have any service done, I don't think you leave it open-ended with no expectation date of when it's going to be completed. And we don't really say that in either or any of our contracts. So I just think we can build that into the request for service form. You don't have to put it in the contract. I think you can put it right in the form because the form is more specific. It does say, you know, today it says who requested the work. It may have come from the district to the town. It just says, you know, something was up and, you know, they may have gotten a call or they may have observed something needs to be done. So you got the flexibility in the form, we use it in an existing form, modify it slightly, and I think it would fit into what we want done, and we could apply that to every contract, work, effort that we need. This is the second time.
I just wanted to add one thing to what you're saying there. Okay. It was to say that if you're calling it a service request form, we ought to also call it a work authorization, service request / work authorization, because when Mark approves it, that basically authorizes the work to the contractor. And then, like you say, it could have a either requested or required completion date. Because once again, in past experience myself, doing contracting for the state, we were given purchase orders that all had an expiration date of by which we had to complete the work, or if you didn't finish it by then, you were just done with whatever it is you've done up to that point, and then they moved on to someone else. So
Okay.
I think what you're saying is a good idea.
Yeah, we can call it work authorization, instead of work order number, work authorization number. They were just looking, the district said they just like a number if they could use the tracking using this document.
Right, sure.
But an authorization, we call it work authorization, and we just have a number.
My only comment to that is I don't have a problem working with the district. We haven't actually had that discussion yet, but the changes that you proposed are fine. The only thing I would say is I think you just give us the leeway and latitude, because we may want to take a more programmatic approach and not do every road by work authorization. We may determine and go to more of a schedule basis too. I mean, I want to leave that flexibility open so that, we can get a better utilization of the services.
Well, I don't know if it's get better utilization of anything, but we've always done by request. Everything we've done for a number of years has been, somebody needs it done, and that's our mechanism to identify it. We're not all out on the roadways, although Ron, Gerald may be on most of them, and I go on a few of them, but we don't necessarily have somebody looking for work to do. So we have relied on people, but we've been flexible as far as who requests the work. I mean, if you're out, and I don't know how often you get out on the roads, but if you go out on the road and you see something needs to be done, I would say that the flexibility is there for you to request the work. And you just put in your name, and this is what you think ought to be done. But scheduling the work on a regular basis, to me, I'm not sure that we have anything that we can really schedule or know when it should be done. We did, if you would, discount or dismiss the idea of a scheduled road maintenance for every road, how many times a month, or any kind of maintenance like that. So, but I don't see any limitation if, like I say, if somebody on a crew out there is grading and they go down a B road, North B road, and they're grading, and they see a problem on one of the off roads, they could certainly call in and say, hey, I think we ought to do this road, and it seems like we ought to be able to make that happen quickly, because it takes them a little while to drive down that road.
Thought on this is, being that this is the contract, and I understand what Jim's saying, and the way we've been assigning work is, as he said, but it may be that Mark does need the flexibility in the contract to perhaps write a work authorization that says, and do this road every month, just because he figured out, if I have to sign this every week, I just as soon put it on. We had talked about that too, as time goes on and we start to work into this, we'll see which roads are requested all the time, which roads seem to need it all the time, and which, maybe could be only by request. But I think we need to give Mark at least the flexibility within the contract language, because otherwise we're going to come back, if 3 months from now we decide, well, let's go ahead and put X, Y, and Z on monthly schedule, and say, well, the contract doesn't allow me to do that, I've got to write a work authorization every week for it. So just so long as he has the ability, though, and he knows what we've talked about now.
Well, I think he has the flexibility, even though it is a separate work authorization. If he thinks he needs work done on one road every week, and he finds that it'd be after 3 months, he can write it up on work authorization and say, I want this road done every week. And I would just like to know that he's done that, because it's an implication, a financial implication. But he has, I think
I don't want to preclude that, though, by some.
No, I don't think we do, and I said that he has the right to identify some work that he thinks needs to be done. We can be specific with that authorization by saying if he identifies something that every other week he gets this request, then I would say, sure, he could be proactive and say, I'm going to do this for this road, and this road, maybe 161st is an example. But I would like to, he has the right to do that authorization, I would say the council gives it. We're not, the beauty of using the request for service form, documenting all these things, is it's not part of the contract, except that it's mentioned that this is the vehicle. And within that request, you can have all sorts of flexibility that's built in, and Mark has that flexibility. I would just like to know, if we get near the end of a few months, that Mark says, hey, we've decided to do these 2 or 3 roads, and we do them a couple times, and every other week, or whatever it might be. I'd just like to know that. But he doesn't, we're not precluding him from doing that with this.
And I appreciate that. My point was, I just don't want to be married to a form that I have to continue to use, because we actually came up with the form originally. And it's a good form, I don't have a problem with it, but there, as we move forward, we may see changes and things necessary to improve the process. I don't want to be hamstrung to a form.
Well, if we talk about the form, if we refer to the form as maybe adjusted from time to time,
Well, let me ask you a question. This language that's been proposed, it doesn't say using the form attached here to as Exhibit B or anything like that. It doesn't. It just says, using a form that includes scope and time of completion. So as long as, if you
so long as it includes
those
authorization.
2 things, then the form can have flexibility to add other information. But what you'd be saying as a contract term, the work authorization needs to have scope and time of completion.
Right.
And both parties are agreeing to that.
And I'd also like both parties to agree to the fact that if it has not been authorized in advance, that it's not going to be paid. So that people don't arbitrarily decide their own work they're going to be doing.
Well, we said that in here,
Just so long as it's there, I'm not saying it's not.
as is confirmed in advance, in writing, and then after that statement, that's when I put in the form, that's just it. It's not part of the attachments. It's an existing form being modified. The suggestion is we've got something that we can modify because people have been using it, it seems to work. And in discussion tonight, we're saying that if the town manager sees a need to do a road and schedule it, because it's always being called for anyway, then he's got that flexibility, and he could put that on one form. We're just saying that the form required and the scope, and he could put on there, I want this done weekly and done within the week, or whatever, something like that. But the point I think Mike's making, the form reference doesn't have to be attached, so it's not specifically in concrete. And it's just a concept of, we are asking for the work to be done. I mean, the form itself, which I have copied, I have given a copy to the council, the district have been using it and saying, they could send it to the town and say, because we got a call. The town could be sending it to the district, all they do is check the little box. This same form could be used with a CNC loader. It could be used with every one of our contractors as a request for service and work authorization number, et cetera.
It should be used for everything.
Yeah, that's better said.
Okay, Ron?
Just a comment about scheduling. 161st Terrace is longer than the district roads as far as splitting Okeechobee. It's over 2 miles long, and that right now would be the only road that I would see that you could schedule it a minimum of once a week. I know we've graded it more than once a week occasionally, depending on the weather. But I would say that when we're going to schedule it to be every week or something like that, we need a history on that road, and it needs to be brought to the council and say, hey, here's what we've got, we need to schedule it, and I would think that we can do that with a vote of the council and just make it routine. But I like the idea of people calling in for the request, and it doesn't have to be the residents on that road. If I see a road that needs grading, I'm gonna be calling it in, so.
Okay. All right, any more changes?
Not in that contract, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so we're going one at a time? All right, so anybody else have any changes with that
Are
first?
we carrying that same change through all of them?
The same things that we talked about apply to all of
Going
them?
through, currently,
Yes,
going through all of them.
yes.
All right, so we need to vote on them one at a time?
Well, I don't know if you're gonna have other comments or other agreements, so what I would suggest is just to vote on them one at a time, and if you're gonna carry through, you can, the motion's simple to make the same, and then
Okay.
we just don't know.
All right,
I make a motion, we approve the grading town roads in Base Rock with the water control district with the changes that we discussed.
seconded by Tom.
Just to clarify, Mark and I are interpreting that motion to give us the authority to make non-substantive changes if we get comments back, like grammatical or repetitive things, those type of changes, but,
So in addition to our changes, if you get other changes,
if we get comments back and they're not substantive, we can make those changes. If we get substantive changes, we have to bring it back to you.
I would say that include that in the motion for no other reason. If there's something that we shouldn't be agreeing to, you can tell us and bring it back to
I
us.
just want to be sure we're not caught up because someone finds that we have an incomplete
No,
sentence somewhere, we wrote something twice and it wasn't consistent and we fix it.
I would amend the motion to include that, Mike.
All right, and you're all right with that second? Okay. And we're voting on basically 11A1, right?
Yes,
Road grading and rock material, or all three of these?
just one.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. I have no comment cards on,
You do have one.
oh, okay. Yes, I do. John?
John Ryan, 3508 A Road. I know we just really got copies of these things today, and just cursory going through them, and I haven't talked to Mary. But I know there's one item that I usually expect to see, and I haven't seen it. And I don't know whether the town would consider this a significant comment, but I think, it might be worthwhile to let the comments flow to Mark and Mike. The comment that I usually expect to see is that the contract incorporates all original invitation to bid documents and provisions in those documents unless they were specifically amended prior to the bid submittal date. That just keeps the bidders or the service providers from having to look at a contract as a brand new picture of everything that they're supposed to pick up or thought they were supposed to pick up in the bid and what they're responsible for. It just is a comforting document that I think is fair to both parties. If that's considered a significant change,
Can I point to see what you're looking at is 7.13. District and town hereby agree to the following contract documents are fully incorporated herein and made a part of the agreement as it's written here in word for word. Town's bid 2013-01 and district's response. In the event of any conflict between any contract documents and term of this agreement shall prevail.
wait, tell me which one that is.
7.13, it's on agenda page 50. It's called conflicts.
Oh, okay.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
713,
7.13.
713.
Yeah,
All right.
15.
Okay, I got it.
Okay, the only word that's left out of there is the original bid documents. The original bid document was subject to 3 amendments, I believe. And I recall there are some things that were in the original documents that I haven't seen in the contract. And this wording doesn't refer to the original invitation to bid document.
Isn't it bid 2013-01?
No, that may be interpreted as, the amended bid document 2013-01. It's a tricky point, but I've got one thing in mind, and I'm not really wanting to discuss it right now.
Well, I can tell you what this is intended to be, is the bid document to which the district responded. So if the district didn't respond to bid number 2013-01,
As amended or including the original bid document?
well, I mean, if there were addendums, I could put in there, including all addendums there too. Would that address your issue?
The original document has some things that were not specifically amended and that I do not believe have been addressed in here that are a material item, and I'd like to discuss it with our council.
Then, okay, then we're just gonna have to wait, and if we get comments back and it's material, well, we may have to bring this back to you on.
Okay, well, we can pass what we're
You
doing.
can pass what you have, and then I can maybe get better an idea of where we're going once I get all comments back from the district's council and then CC's council.
All right,
So no, can I recommend, and maybe we can amend our motion to say, town bid number 2013-01 and addenda and district response, just so that we know the addenda are included as far as where we're coming from. And that way, when they address it, they'll know that we included the addenda. Because certainly, if we said something in the first and then we change something in the addenda, it's the addenda that carried through. It's not what you originally wrote, it's what you changed.
That was certainly the intent.
Yeah, well, that's
So I
the
can
intent, that's the
add
intent of
phrase
all
and
addendas.
addenda there
You wouldn't
too.
make them if they weren't intended to.
It's going to be
Clarify and
differently
change.
if they want something different in the contract than in the bid.
Correct.
That's going to be, that's a different item.
Okay.
But we just want to make sure that what we have in here is what's in the bid and the addenda, that is, that's perfectly acceptable. That was the intent anyway, was to include the addenda, and I can add the phrase and addendum there too, to 7.1.
All right, so you're on with that, Jim?
Tell me what we would say differently, that this would be approving this contract.
Because there's a conflict provision that brings in the bid and the response, okay? Because there may be technical things in there rather than recreate the wheel. So this conflict is intended to say that the bid and the response are part of the contract documents. However, if there's a conflict between this contract and those bid documents, this contract prevails.
So what we want to say is we want to include the addenda as
Right.
well as part of this.
That was part of what was
Addenda are
responded
Part
to.
of the initial bid.
And that's what you were saying here, but you didn't say addendum included, you just said.
Yeah, my intent was
Yes.
that was it, but to clarify, I'm certainly fine with adding an addendum there too.
Okay, so amended.
And even if that's not the issue, that
covers that
clarifies that aspect of an issue, in
So,
case that is the
We're
issue.
clear with the motion, we're clear with the second. John?
Particularly with that last sentence, I feel as though there was something in the original bid documents that has not been clearly addressed in this contract. And if it's an unclear item, I consider that a material item that I'd like to discuss with our council. And
Okay,
have it
okay, well,
presented
you'll-
to the council.
You'll be coming back before.
Absolutely.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes 5-0. Okay. Moving to item 2, road repairs. Any changes?
And Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to make the changes to this document in keeping with one of the changes that we made to the first document on road grading and road rock, which would be, more specifically, when we get to the, I think it's 2.1 also, or 2. Let me just get there.
This one, I believe, was 224.
Oh, there is parties in 2.1.
Right, but before you were amending 2.3 with the work authorization, this one is 2.4, where you put that in there.
Okay, the 2.1, we need to change parties to town. And then 2.4 is where the change that we made to the prior contract 2.3, we incorporate the same changes. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And primarily, we're addressing the use of the document to scope
And then
and
7.1,
completion.
and then 7.13 and addenda there too.
Yes.
All right, you can make that a form of motion.
Yes, Lee, go ahead.
Okay.
Give me a second. I just wanted to look at one more thing, but go ahead, and you get a second.
All right,
I'll second.
for Ryan first, second by Ryan. Further discussion by council?
I have one more thing to check.
Okay.
Since all of these start looking alike, I want to kind of double check again. There's no other items on this.
Okay. Have a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes 5-0. All right, moving to C, emergency call-out. 3.
Get there in a second. They are along. emergency repairs of town road. Is that
That's what
wrong?
we just did. So
Yes.
road repairs we just did. This is emergency
This is
call.
emergency call.
Emergency call out. Is this not also called Article 2, emergency repairs?
No, it's
No.
not. Just-
That was what we
Call
just
out
did.
for services.
Sorry. I'm in trouble with my phone, back and forth between these things.
It's on page 75 of the
Thank you.
agenda.
That's what I needed. 75?
Yes, sir. That's where the contract starts. But the items we were discussing in the previous ones correspond to 76 on this one.
Yeah, that's where it was. The title is called Emergency Repair of Town Roads, Article 2. That's where I'm at. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about the name of the document itself. My bad.
Page 76, 77, depending on your count.
Right.
Item 2.1, incorporate, I make a motion that we make the same changes we did in the prior contract where we have where we say may be amended by parties, you say town instead of parties. And then, go ahead and help me if you like.
Well, can I explain 2.3? It's different than the other ones because this is for emergency repairs. And when we had written this and talked about it on our end, it was to try to give as much flexibility to make sure the work got done and didn't wait for paperwork. So this was written to allow that picture, Mark on the side of the road, looking at a washed out road, calling up Steve and saying, you need to get out here to such and such road. It needs to be repaired as soon as possible. I'll go back and I'll send you an email, and then we'll do paperwork afterwards. Now, if you want to require the same paperwork afterwards, you can, but since this is for emergency repairs, it was written to try to deal with that type of scenario.
I understand. I mean, when I read it, when you say, whenever possible, such directive shall be in writing in advance.
Yeah.
Whenever possible. I understand, and that was no problem with that, considering what we're talking about.
Right.
I would just suggest that we use the same document if it's one that we use for work authorization. Doesn't have to be done before.
That's your prerogative. I just wanted to make sure.
I mean, we'd be consistent. We say this is the document we use. It could happen a week later because we say whenever possible in advance. But the authorization would be a verbal authorization, I would expect.
Or an email.
And then you follow it up with a written authorization. I'm just saying that the documentation can be the same. It's consistent. We all look for that documentation whenever you're talking about paying a bill. Because you may get a bill in 1 month and you have all the work authorizations attached.
You want the authorization?
Yes.
Written no matter what, you're just saying that you can do it verbally.
After the, you can do it after the
That's
fact.
the only one where they can take a verbal.
Yes.
to go do it.
Yeah, because it says whenever possible, right? So that means that I would say that it defaults to other than written.
What I could say is at the end there, it says, in the formal documentation, you see the last line there, it says, and we say in the form of the request for service / work authorization may be completed subsequently to confirm the work.
Thank you. That would be the change.
Why does it say will be completed subsequently rather than will?
Will, correct.
That's the only,
Tough crowd.
yeah. That's the only change that I would put in the form of a motion.
And 7 and 13 as well, a reference to the
Yes.
agenda.
I'll second those.
7, 1,
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second by Tom,
Hold on, yeah, I'm sorry.
motion by Jim. Further discussion? Anybody? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes 5-0. We are now moving to 11B. And this is
Vegetation.
vegetation, yes.
Make a motion that we, in this particular mowing vegetation contract, we had said already town, so we don't need to make the change of parties to town. So 2.1 is fine. But under 2.3, we say mowing maintenance will be performed on a road segment no less than 8 times per year. I had changed that, suggested a change that says inconsistent with what we did on the first contract, up to 8 times per year.
Taking out no less.
The question,
Taking
Mark?
out no less. Is that what you're saying?
No, he's saying less, up to 8.
Up to
This
8
is
times
no
per
less.
year.
Yeah. How, did you put is this in the specifications of what they did? Did they, yeah, if they've already bid on no less than 8 times, to let them do less than 8 times, really gives them more money for a little less work. Because the way he's saying, no
No,
less than 8 times mean you will do at least 8 times.
but we had the same issue with the 2 times per month on every road, which we said up to 2 times in the contract. So we can, I think we'd say up to 8 times per year. They're being paid based on the job, not on the
Not on the lump
8
sum.
times per year. Every year they get paid 8 times for each road.
They're paid for each time they know, correct, Mark?
It's
Yeah.
hourly.
With individual prices per,
Yeah, it
Per
was,
road.
I think they were $40 an hour, if I remember correctly.
And then we have, I guess it's 2.4 in this contract, but we were
All right, before we go on though, are we going to stay with the wording that was in the bid documents?
I said up to 8 times.
You said up to, and the bid documents were no less than.
We're not sure.
Well,
is there
double
any,
check that
is
out.
there any reason we even need to specify anything? If we're doing it on a as requested basis, why do we even say that?
No,
The only thing that I would think is if I bid it and it said no less than 8 times, I would be figuring equipment based on.
Sure, I'd expect to do it
8
8,
times.
I'd expect to
That's
do it 8
exactly
times and almost that I'd been promised to do it.
Exactly, because it was part of the bid documents, and then all of a sudden I've come up and say, well, the road is only needed twice a year, then he
Yeah,
would
my
be
problem,
getting.
right, especially if you're trying to amortize your equipment over that whole thing, if you only do it twice instead of 8 times, that would significantly change your pricing.
You might buy a mower for that.
Well, I was gonna say, you know, what we can do is, I thought this was what it said in the bid. We can confirm it, and we can copy it word for word for what's in the bid.
I think that's what we.
I think that's what we need to do.
I think that's,
my concern is that we've never had scheduled, just up front, that we know that something needs to be done 8 times a year. I don't know that we know that for every road. And I would suggest we never trim vegetation every road. It might be lucky if we did one road once a year.
No, you're right, mowing grass, not hedging 8 times.
Okay, Ron?
If I would have seen that in the bid, I would have had a problem with it for the simple fact that anybody that bid on this contract can make money off mowing. 50% of the roads in Loxahatchee is town roads. Okay, for them to say no less than 8 times for every town road, first of all, they're making a fortune. In the wintertime, you may cut it once at the start of winter. When the rainy season stops and the grass stops growing, you may cut it one time and it may be 6 months before you have to cut it again. And then that falls back on a private contractor. He may trim it 6 inches when he could have trimmed it 18 inches to open the right of way, knowing that he's going to come back and make the same amount of money to do it a second time. So when the job's done the first time, I want it done the best he can do to last the longest. So I would say that there should be, this is one thing we need to change, and if they have a problem with it, then they don't want our work, because this is going to cost us a fortune.
We have to look and see what the bid document said,
well,
to be fair to them.
yeah, you know, I mean,
Let them come back to us on this one. Why don't we just defer?
I think that's a good idea.
I would like to put up to in there, and if they have a problem with that, then they come back on it. Because we shouldn't have had it in the bid document if it's something that we're saying there.
Thing is, if that's what we bid out to everybody, we're changing it after the fact is improper.
You know, it's
We
not
can
that-
talk to John about it, but,
yeah, we have to, this was bid out, we have to follow the bid specs. If there's an issue with the bid specs, you know, we have to, I don't want to say we need to review tonight, we have to review what our options were. But, yeah, we're gonna have to, but I believe this was written to be consistent with bid specs.
And my question is, I thought that at the end of the bids thing, we had a clause in there stating that we could waiver certain things in the bid, we had to write the waiver. Did that not cover something like this?
Usually it does, like the scope of work, usually not, it's usually the informalities, someone forgets it, you know, like a form or whatever doesn't provide them with a competitive advantage, those type of things. So, no, that wouldn't, you know, unless, this, again, these contracts are written based on the scope of services that was bid out and awarded. If there's an issue with the scope of services that were bid out and awarded, then we may need to focus in on that aspect of it. But it does say pursuant to a schedule to be agreed upon by the parties, but it still has that first part that says this is going to be 8 times a year.
Yeah, one concern I have is they're gonna do it 8 times a year, but you've got it here as an hourly thing, so you really have no way to say how many hours we're even doing, so you really don't know what this is gonna, it's hard to do a budget based on this, not knowing, you know what I'm saying? It's apples to bananas in a lot of cases.
I would like to see it put in there and changes up to, and then if John has a heartache with that, we can come back and talk to you about it. First of all, since we did not, as a council, have an opportunity to look at this bid document, as far as input to it, and say any condition, any of the way it was worded, and we're not seeing it until we actually have to sign a contract and commit funds, I think I would like to see us go back and say, because first of all, we have a renewal coming up in a year, that would definitely be something that would change in the contract before we renewed it. But I would like to go forward with it and see if we just have to, I think we can ask and have it include up to, or just not put a time amount of work in there and see if John's okay with it.
The only thing is I'm concerned about that because, that bid was out there for quite some time. You could have looked at it there. I mean, we did 3 or 4 addenda to it. I just think, we need to live up to it. We can talk about it and see where we're at, but I mean, I want to be real careful because you start messing around with bids, I think you open yourself up.
It'd be different if we had seen it and said, that's good, put the bid out that way, we had not. So we're all, the opportunity now is to comment on what we think we want to commit to, and that's what I'm suggesting, that we go forward and see if John will okay then.
If John was the lowest bid, okay? So no matter what, he got it now. Now, John has always been good about doing what's right for the town. And numerous times he's helped us out in emergencies and he's done things for free. Now, I find it hard to believe. I'd lose a little bit of respect if he held us to something like this. Now, I apologize for missing it, but that's ridiculous. People with common sense should realize that 50% of the roads in Loxahatchee, he's going to have to move awful quick to do them 8 times. He's going to make a fortune off of it. He can make his money off doing it as needed, and that's the way it should be, as needed. We don't need to have people cutting things that don't need it. So I'm like Jim, up to 8 times. In other words, that's kind of putting a limit that he couldn't cut it no more than 8 times. And I'm gonna be one person out there that when I see him on a road cutting it, they don't need it, I'm gonna have a problem. And all I can do is bring it to the public, bring it to the town, bring it to the council, and if we're obligated by contract.
You have the second sentence in there, there's nothing in it that obligates us to a certain number. So.
Well, that don't make sense, so if it says, it's conflicting, okay? If we're saying ahead of that, and it's prior to the second sentence, so we're saying 8 times, no less than 8 times, and then we're saying we don't have any obligations. So John could look at the second sentence.
Pursuant to the schedule agreed upon by the parties.
You know what? Why don't
you take out the 8 times altogether? And just
say
if it
perform
has-
on the road segments pursuant to a schedule agreed upon by the parties. And we have the second sentence that says there's no guarantee of a certain number.
I mean, you may have, to John's advantage, where you need it more often than 8 times, so putting it up to may limit that. So I think taking it out entirely just says, okay, let's come up with what the basic request is. We have people say, I need something done, and we want to go do it. I would think it's actually going to be far from the 8 myself, and we do have an hourly bid proposal. It is per ton or per yard in terms of dumping, so I think those covered and are fine. And I really don't think John would have a problem with it. If he does, then we have to talk about it. The other change would be that we look at the 713 the same way. And I guess you would introduce the form that we've introduced in the others, request for service form, wherever that may fit.
All right. Relative to the 8 times thing, I don't know that Mark and Mike have really adequately looked at what was bid on versus what's happening here, and if that change really changes that aspect of it. I don't know, you
Well, no, I mean, I'm pretty confident
want
that
some
this,
time to look at it again and think about that aspect of it? Or
well, no, I'm pretty confident that that's what was written in the
What's here, what's written in
what's
there.
there, and, I'm pretty confident we would have looked at that.
So we should try to stay with that versus making this change?
Well, the issue that you have is, you put that in, you have it in there, it says, no less than 8 times a year. That's gonna require you to commit to this schedule here being.
No, I understand that. Did we already commit to it in the bid though?
That's what the.
Well, I think we want to check that, and I think we want to have a
I mean, it's your
conference call.
contention that we have
Because
committed to that.
because they looked at the bid, I mean, they had
So
to.
it's- So what I'm trying to get to, it's probably not proper for us to make that change without you all negotiating that, or can we even negotiate that, because that's negotiation after the fact.
I think we're going to
I
talk
don't know
about
if
that.
that was, let us have a
So it may not be
conversation, review
appropriate for
it.
us to do that motion if they can't decide right now even what's up. They've got to do a conference, I think we ought to hold this one off until we think that through.
Well, my only concern is that we're trying to get CNC lined up to do some work, and I know someone would like to be at a point where if they came back and said, this is fine, and, the modifications that we made, they agreed to, we can have us approve the contract and then assign them to some work. So,
Is the question that can we even make this
Well,
negotiation?
no, you're not negotiating, but what I want to check the bid docs to see if whether there was anything, it was the waiver question, maybe there was something in there about, that this is the proposal and there's no guarantee of work in there. If there's some language like that in the bid, then we have some flexibility. If there isn't, then we have the bid and it's been accepted and the offer was made based on it.
I guess, can we make the motion, make these changes based on that change being
Confirmed?
confirmed by legal counsel?
If it isn't, we'll just bring it back to you on the floor.
I don't like the idea of you not asking John if he has a problem with it. If he's the one that got the low bid. If he doesn't have a problem with this, I mean, to me, it makes him look bad to think that, we were naive enough to think that everything's gonna need more than 8 times, no less than 8 times a year. Now, to ask him if he has a problem with this, I can't figure out why that's impossible or why you don't want to do that. And if he has a problem with it, then we can go to the second phase and leave it in there because we overlooked it and we made a mistake. And at the end of the contract year, then trust me, I'll remember that it cost us a fortune and we were mowed when it was unnecessary.
And well, one question about mowing, do we even have a standard as to the width of the mowing, or is it all just dependent? I mean, if there's a fence there, he might mow 6 feet. If there's no fence there, where does he stop? Where do we?
There's no standard.
There's no standard. So is it something we could set?
Yeah, we're going to be setting, I think, as we go along, yeah, absolutely.
Why don't you, if you're inclined to make that motion, to make that change, just make the motion and make the change. And if we determine through the course of conversations or review that it's not you know, it can't be done for whatever reason, we'll bring it back to you on the
So
floor.
we may have some other sections that need to be discussed again, so we don't know.
Yeah, we don't know, you know, we could be coming back anyway, but if you make that motion, and that way we have the ability to do it, you know, once we confirm we're able to, and we confirm there's no issues with it.
Then my motion would be on that particular item that we strike no less than 8 times per year. Just leave it open, up or down from that number.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ron. Further discussion by council.
By the way, Mr. Mayor, I think I made a note that we do 7.13 also if it's applicable, and also we make a note that in terms of the motion that we include the request for service.
All right, Ron, you're all right with those changes? Okay. We have a motion and a second. The only comment I've got, and I think it's very careful that when we put out for bid, you know, I bid a lot of stuff as a subcontractor. And when you're bidding jobs, sometimes you put a little more money into something and take it away from another. And it's not always the same. So the bottom line is you look at the bid documents and you look at what was bid. And it would not be proper for me to bid laying all the 8-inch, you know, I've got 8-inch block, I've got 12-inch block, and I've got some stuff down in the ditch that's going to be a heck of a job. So I give you an average for all of them, and you come along and say, oh, by the way, the easiest ones to get to, I'm going to let my cousin do, you know, and then you just do the hard stuff. So, you know, I question whether John had enough money in his cost of the $3.50 a yard for the other stuff, because he was less than, what was he, 30% of the next one to him, and the others were super high. So I've got a guy that's already bent over backwards, giving me a super good price for one part. I just want to be careful beating him up about the other, especially when it's part of the bid documents. I want to save money for the town, I really do, but at the same time, I do not want to get a reputation for the contractors that bid our work saying they're going to change the game after we get the job. And there are contractors, I know Tom deals with them, I deal with them all the time, that after the job's all done, oh, well, you should have included this, even though we didn't have it in there, it was kind of hidden in there, but, you know, we had one clause saying that if I want you to do something else, you're going to do it. So I just want to be careful that we don't do that. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. It passes 3-2. All right,
Mayor and Tom Need.
yes.
And
the mayor and Tom.
again, we're gonna review it, and if we
I
can't
understand.
do it, we're gonna bring it back. Okay, we're not gonna do anything that is inconsistent with bidding, procurement. No,
Okay, moving to the professional engineering services.
Thank you, Your Honor. Let me I did provide a very detailed staff report, and I'll try to summarize it very quickly so we can move on here. This whole process was done in accordance with Florida Statute 287-055, Consultants Competitive Negotiation Act. Under that act, as you know, you go ahead and you request, you have to do list of qualifications. You go ahead and you develop a selection committee, you do a short listing of the proposals from the engineering consultants, then you have presentations, and then the committee goes to work. In this particular case, the working group that we put together consisted of Stephen Yohe, the district administrator from Waxahachie Grove Water Control District, Jim Fleischman, the town planning consultant, Dr. Bill Lauda, who's a member of the Roadways, Equestrian Trails, and Greenways Committee, and town manager. We went ahead, you have the backup here. We met, the committee met on April 30, 2013, and that was where we reviewed all the respondents and we ranked the top 3 firms in each category. On April 9th, we held an all-day meeting at the Chamber of Commerce, and we had the top 3 consultants in each category give us presentations. I did indicate in the report we had actually asked for environmental engineering and civil engineering, but after the review we decided that those particular services could probably be rolled into the general town engineering and handled in that matter to keep the amount of contracts down. So we did do the ranking, and we had for the general town engineer we had Urban Anthony, Kesher Barrett and Associates, and Simmons and White. For the surveying, we had AB Engineering, Fisher Barrett Associates, and Keegan Schnars. And then for traffic engineering services, we had Simmons and White, Stanley Consultants, and Calvin Giordano and Associates. We heard all the presentations on May 9th, and after that, the following recommendations were made for General Town Engineering, Kesher Barrett and Associates, for land surveying services, A&B Engineering, and for traffic engineering services, Simmons and White. We provided copies of the three qualifications set forth by those entities that I just listed. In addition, we provided some of the other attachments that give you a flavor as to how the item was addressed. We would recommend that you ratify the firms that were selected by the selection committee and authorize the town manager and the town attorney to draft the contract and complete a competitive negotiation with the most qualified firms. Under the CCNA, we've done competitive selection, now we have to move on to a competitive negotiation phase where we would negotiate with each of the selected entities, and then if we can't, you move on to the next based upon trying to get a good competitive pricing.
This is one price content.
This is what we would recommend you do. You, as an alternative, if you have any problems with the firms that were recommended by the selection committee, you could elect to bring those firms back in and listen to presentations if you so desire. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Need a motion before, motion and a second before, or are we going to discuss it? Let's go ahead and discuss it. What are your thoughts, council members?
Mike, your experience with all sorts of towns and whatnot, are these three firms someone that you've ever dealt with or are aware of or familiar with?
Well, I'm not on the selection committee, but I don't know if I've ever had to work with any of the firms, so I can't give you any feedback either way.
Okay.
I'm not trying to hedge, I work with some, maybe they work with some cities, I don't know.
Any other council members?
Just a quick question for Mark. In your choices, did you do any sort of objective rankings, any sort of anything done, or did you just say 1, 2, 3?
Well, each committee member was on their own to look at the request for qualifications by the respondents and give their input. What I did do is I issued an email type memorandum to the committee, and I advised them of the criteria contained in the CCNA that they need to look at, such as how much work has been, a couple examples, is it a minority-owned business or firm, take into account previously how much work the town may have given to any of the applicants, their ability to perform the services. There's about 7 or 8 criteria that I urged the committee individually to look at. And then I reminded them and then also indicated the key components of the request for qualifications that they need to look at, such as their summaries, all their staffing plans, et cetera, et cetera. So they did have, now did they, each person take it and, allocate points and everything? I did that. I don't know if the rest did, I can't say it. But, and then, we were very methodical, I think. I know Dr. Loud is here if he wants, but I mean, we were very careful that we try to do it by the book as the statute requires.
Okay. Bill Loudon, come on up.
Okay.
He gave us a card,
On this one?
11C,
John, you got
Still pass it by.
and then you also got the public comment.
Oh, okay, that's the one I remember. Okay. Yeah, like Mark said, Bill Lally wrote. Like Mark said, we went through, when I went to stop by the town office to pick up the portfolios, I wanted someone to help me carry them. So it took quite a while, a lot of reading, calling up a few people to check on things that were said and all of that. And like Mark said, we went through it and went through each portfolio, looking for positives and negatives. I'm the one that always looks for the negatives, because I've had so many negatives looked at for me. Anyway, and then the main thing was their interviews. We learned a lot during the interviews. especially one traffic engineer that said, oh, I'd never sign off on any road without a guardrail. So that.
Good.
That didn't take much there. But we did rank each of them and then had a discussion. It was open to the public. Totally in the sunshine. Actually, as the Cavalia commercial says, not to toot our own horn, but toot. I think we did a good job.
Thank you, Bill. All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Just a moment, Mr. Mayor. Bill, thank you for your extended effort and heavy lifting this exercise.
Next time we'll get you a wheelbarrow.
And a leave.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we approve the recommendation. Is that what we're saying?
Second.
We have a motion by,
Ratify the selections.
Yeah, and we'll be bringing back the contracts as soon as we get. We have to negotiate these, so it might take us, we might not get it to the floor, okay, we'll do it as quickly as we can.
motion by Jim, second by Rick. Any further comments? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0. All right, moving to public comments. I've got one. Bill out.
Got the scene, I'll let you know. Sorry, I've been away for a little while again and building up, Bill out the road, building up all the comments and everything at one time.
We ought to be home by now.
Good, 6 quick points. On the IGC meeting, you can do whatever you can to work out Wellington, Loxahatchee Groves working together on the manure ordinances we both have. You can't? No cross person. No cross person. Okay. Well, anyway, I spoke at their council meeting when they came forward with theirs in favor of theirs doing something to the fact then. Anyway, on manure, which is a pollutant, I was talking to Brian Gentry and Rob Robbins with ERM. I gave him some of the numbers I did in 2004, 2007 on our canals just for soluble phosphorus. And he went, ooh, I hope your total is, your soluble is your total. Well, total, I'm going to be doing the total analysis here pretty soon, and that's going to be very, very high. So we've got to start watching that. The LGLA is having Laura Santorsky from the University of Florida at IFAS, who is working with all green industry. She's teaching the green industry GI guarantees. We're going to have an LGLA August, whatever, the fourth Thursday of August. That's as soon as we can get her there. She's very, very busy now giving everybody these lessons. I also wanted her to talk on Florida friendly fertilizer, better polymer, and on how to use it, because criteria are coming down the road, and I've been harping on this for many, many years. It's coming closer. Point number 2, committees on micromanagement. Please give the committees that you've asked some flexibility to start talking about. It's the only time we can talk to each other because of the sunshine law. So if we're working on something that you've given us to work on, yes, we're going to work on it, but we need to be able to bring something else up to be thinking about for the future. 3, roads. Make sure, you're still spending gas tax money on private property, even though they're public roads, but somehow please work on getting legal access signed over so these bloody lawyers, sorry Mike, don't eventually somewhere come up and bite us and make a ticket. Mecca today at the county commission went forward, everybody passed that, so they are going to try to sell Mecca to South Florida Water Management for $26 million, and they approved the gun range, and they approved going forward with the ATV park at 20 Wild Bend. Changes. The changes that Jim brought up are all needed things, looking at all of this minutia, but you realize that ate up about an hour and a half. If someone works through a document like this, if you can put the document with cross-throughs and insertions, throw it up on the screen, everybody can look at it, I think that it would move forward much faster. Thank you very much.
Bill, hold up, got a question for you. We talked about this manure thing, and we talked about it at a council meeting about, we've got a 60-acre farm that spreads it between their banana, they got a banana farm. And we talked about getting someone to do a test in a road canal, which favors the farm. But at the same time, and I don't know if Bill could help us here or not, but we haven't decided on when we're gonna get the test done or whatever, but we need to do it before the rainy season really gets here. And at the same time, I would hope that if we did it on the outlaying of the farm, that we would go to a farther point from that farm and have it tested also so that we can compare. Because if it is causing, if it's affecting the A Road Canal, then we need to do something about it.
Okay, first off, if you're asking me if I can do the test, no. I'm gonna be doing a bunch of tests for science. I'm in academia. I'm using EPA certified tests. I'm using NIST traceable standards. Same thing that a group would do. I'm not certified by the state to be doing stuff I can't. I could probably take my stuff to court, but I'm not going to. Okay. I will present a paper to the Florida Academy of Science, which I've done before, on this type of stuff. But I'm not going to do a test to. I'm going to come up with data to show a general trend. Okay. I had Klaus Van Groot's horse whiskey provided a lot of manure in 2004 for one of my graduate students. And we looked at his soil, how fast it was taken into different, as it leached into the soil, how fast it was tied up into different fractions, how it looked in the canal. One thing I found out about looking at in 2004, 2007, is that the canals south of Okeechobee pretty much look like C-51 because of backfronting projects. The canals north of Okeechobee started to accumulate stuff because we moved up there and they were completely drained. You put more water in and the nutrients are still staying there, so they were getting concentrated. So little things like that I can do.
And to confirm anecdotally what Bill's saying, the A Road Canal has huge amounts of algae. Algae is from hypernutrification. And so whether it's the phosphorus, whether it's the nitrogen, whether it's a combination, wherever we see that algae, and for whatever reason, it's also in the B Road Canal, and without an apparent source. So it could be that it's just flowing up the canal or whatever, but I have definitely noticed a huge amount of algae in the South A Road Canal, and it doesn't seem to dissipate at all.
Now there are some.
But that also is constantly running. The pump is constantly running there, pulling water to that area so that they can pump it into the guest property.
Okay,
So
they pump it in.
They pump it into the guest property, so there's if you go on any day in A Road, you'll see the water flowing towards the duck pile.
Yeah, duck pile, like the duck piddle. Carrie, who's not here today, brought me a sample. I went back and checked it, but I didn't believe it. A point source coming to the small pipe culvert coming off of the property into the C canal. Okay, on my high range phosphorus test, I included 5 times. It came out with 24,000 parts per billion. I checked it 3 times. I thought somebody was kidding me. I mean, it was like somebody took a 55-gallon drum of basic hydrogen phosphate and dumped it in the water. I've never seen anything this strong. So there are a few point things around there that have to be looked at. A couple of things that can be done to save the canals is we had a water lettuce balloon down on Plucking Canal. Pretty good one it was also on F Road, F Canal, and there, and sprayed it, okay? When you spray that much vegetation and kill it, it drops. Takes the oxygen out of the water because now it's being eaten up by bacteria and fungus. Okay, so it makes an anoxic zone, not good for fish. But it also releases the nutrients that was in that plant. If, and this is the hardest one to sell to anybody because it's expensive, you can harvest the accumulation. I'm not talking about the little stuff all along the side of the canal, but when it gets really, really big, if we can harvest it, till it into the soil somewhere, it's much, much better. You're taking those nutrients out of the water, and when you kill all that algae, dead stuff that's down there is gonna go flush through your pipes down, and I don't know if we've ever had to clean the one out over at Publix yet, but that stuff makes it all the way over there. So it's much better to harvest. They do some harvesting in Northwest Lake Okeechobee, because they used to, there was a big article, the Army Corps of Engineers blame the fish kill on nature. I use this in my course every time. Okay, well, it was nature that ate all the hyacinths that they killed down there. That was the nature part. But the non-natural part was the Army Corps of Engineers came by with 2,4-D and killed 100 acres of hyacinths. So, anyway, I'd love to see, us get some there was at one point E Canal, I don't think it's got it now, last year had a whole bunch of Vallisneria, tape grass growing. It looks like wheelgrass, but it's called tape grass. That was neat. I thought, hey, the canal's coming back. Hey, it's not there now.
No, and it's dying all over the canal system, and I don't know why.
Yeah.
For no apparent reason.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bill.
Okay.
All right, Mazier, is that it?
That's easy. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, Councilman. My name is Maziar Kishalar. It's a name I'm hoping that you hear much more often and get more comfortable with over the next few years. I wanted to personally be here tonight. I thank you for your conditional vote of confidence. I totally understand the nature of your vote tonight, and I understand that you don't know us, and it is for us to earn your respect and trust. I just wanted to tell you that we feel very, very honored to be selected by your staff. They honestly did an excellent and very thorough job. Both days that I attended their deliberations, I went home exhausted because of how inquisitive they were, how detailed they were. In the first one we couldn't speak. It was the selection, or in the shortlist process, we could not speak. But sitting there and listening to them was exhausting itself. And then the presentations, they put us through the paces. And honestly, we do this all the time. I am on selection committees often, and on the receiving end of them often. This was done very well. And that's all. I just wanted to tell you thank you. I am a part of this Palm Beach County community. My name doesn't look that way, but I've been here for 32 years, and I've had 2 children and raised them here, and they're both coming back out from university, working back in Palm Beach County. So thank you very much.
Thank you. You're a luckier man than mine 10 people. All right, moving to town attorney, Mike.
No report.
All right, moving to council members. Jim, go start off.
I want to thank we had a crew that seemed to stay pretty much all night, and a bunch of what we have left, so thank you for coming. You must have heard maybe we want to try to make it less than 11:30 tonight, so you stay. But we do appreciate you here. Thank you, council, for tonight.
All right.
Not too much, thanks for coming. Good night.
Ron.
Just a quick question. Since we're thinking about this due process thing, as far as we've got the drainage ditch on Compton, are we going to be able to get an estimate on that? In other words, can we move on that at all? That's just
We're going to do everything we can between now and the next meeting on Compton and the contract. If we hit roadblocks, unfortunately, we'll just have to come back to you.
Okay.
But we're not, I understood what you did before with Compton, and it was subject to us with the CC, so we're going to work on both fronts.
All right. And one last statement, the pond deal with the FDOT, they rated each individual item like from 1 to 10. Well, their public opinion and residency concern was a 9 on the pond siding, so that meant that it was very important. So I would think that petitions and our input to the politicians and stuff would mean something to them. And thank you all for hanging in here tonight, appreciate it.
Okay, and again, I want to thank everybody. Oh, I'm sorry. No. Yeah, go ahead, Don.
I'd only like to quickly say that I hope Don's right, but I wouldn't bet on it with DOT, so. And actually, the folks that enjoy maybe more controversy and anarchy, not their early stuff.
Good deal. Thank you all for coming. One of the things that I want to do is prior to getting any of our OGM contractors here to do any work, I know that for the 24th court, where they have the drainage issue, where they still need a culvert under the road, to coordinate that with, you know, the water control district to put it in, because it does drain their road, and when that OGM contractor is here to repair that piece of road on C Road. You know, we just need to look ahead and make sure we've done the best work. So again, thank you all. Motion to adjourn. Second?
Second.
Yeah, that was me.
It's actually one of the only things we've done. All right. Max called the next couple of days, Max with some of these single issues. We know the inside, so we'll be well, more than that wasn't a very good
Hey, Sherry came so close, we're in a silent auction the other day, and it had a whole basket, and all the